Okay. So I think we're live. I think live.
Oh,
We are
just
live.
in time for me to type on my clacky keyboard. That's all.
Well, that's how we do it. Clacky or us. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the best of our week
Hey.
in person. Who would have thunk it that we come
Well,
back in
no,
person?
let's not tease the audio listener. We're not in person. We are in our respective laboratories, but
It's just one
TK
massive
is no
office that goes
longer.
from one city to
I know from close to the
close to
beach all the way up to the valley.
yeah.
One long liminal space corridor. But TK is not on a mother flipping boat this week.
TK wishes he was on a mother
He's
flipping boat,
back in his
and he's back and
mother flipping
saying
boat.
cruising the world and enjoying the super nice, super cold weather of Alaska. Of course, I leave, really nice weather, and I come down here, and it's like
You couldn't have
okay.
brought some of that cold with you, could you?
I
Just had
tried.
to hog it all for
On the way
yourself.
back, we felt the weather change on the boat. Like even though we weren't even by land, the air, the whole environment changed. We were like, oh man, yeah, we're coming back. I was like wearing jackets, beanies, and like snuggling. Like it was nice. It was hot cocoa weather. Let's say that in
Right?
July, of all months. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm.
that's gotta be it's gotta be pretty nice. It looked like a pretty good time out there. So I was glad you and the fam got to go do something fun.
Oh, absolutely. And we lucked out with the internet working on Project Fi that one day with you and I, because it was horrible the whole time. The internet was just, I mean, I'm glad it was there. I'm glad we had internet. But I was texting Juan, and there was one video, the Arabic video of the Reno 8 Pro, I was trying to post, and it took over 30 hours with an issue,
30
which hours. We're
hours.
talking DSL, early generation of ADSL speeds. I was like, and I mean, it wasn't even a massive video, by the way. Just was like a 0.3, maybe 2 to 3 gig file. It's a 13 to 16-minute video. It wasn't like a massive video, but it was just horrible. And then it crashed. And I mean, Juan and I were texting. At one point, I thought I lost the whole progress, and I think I had to restart, like when it was like at 91%. And then somehow
That's the
after you,
worst.
when you and I hung up later on, I what's it called? I closed all the applications and I was updating YouTube. And then when I went back into YouTube, it resumed upload. So it did save itself, but it was still over
That's
30 hours.
good.
Yeah, it was like, yeah.
And that drives me crazy because like I had some massive issues in rural New Mexico trying to get a
Yeah.
video up, and it would like tank at 30%, and you're like, you have 30% of the file. I'm sending you the exact same file.
Why don't we just
Why
continue?
can't you continue this upload? And YouTube was like, I don't know what's going on. Upload a new video. And you're like, I need to find a YouTube engineer and just shake them because like
They
this should be more like an FTP style upload.
absolutely. There is no reason
This
why we
is
can't
so
do
dumb.
gradual or composite upgrade. You should be able to upload,
Upload in parts
in
or
parts.
something.
There's
Yeah.
no reason for us to re-upload the whole. So yeah,
It's like I'm not saying YouTube needs to like figure out how BitTorrent works, but YouTube needs to figure out how BitTorrent
so it
works.
works exactly. But I do want to say, well, actually, obviously, welcome back to everybody hanging out with us. I see Michael in there, Ron, Greg, Gabriela's in there. I see Javier in there, Steve DeRoche. Bonjour, mon ami. Bonsoir. Pardon. Bonsoir. Good evening. And of course, Barry Johnson. So I do want to say this. I'm super jelly of you and Barry this week.
Yeah.
For about a
Yeah,
week
you
now.
are.
I am.
Big
But
time.
I will hold myself. I will contain
You should.
the emotional jealousy there and not let it.
Oh, we're gonna field trip. I mean, it's not like you're not gonna get your hands on this soon. It's
I know, but it's still
good
exciting to see
times.
that it exists this side of the Pacific. I was going to say Atlantic, but that's the other side. Look at that beauty.
What are you doing, Dave?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave. No, Hal, open the pod bay doors, Hal. I can't do that, Dave.
Dave.
I love it.
I'm excited for both of you guys.
Barry's giving us the entire song lyrics on it.
Oh, look who starts floating on a boat in a deep blue sea. Let's say 5.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Well, Barry,
Oh, wow.
I wish you and I could have duetted this on the show last week, because that would have been an
Dang,
epic
sir.
show. That would have been a
Dang, sir. So actually, what we need to do, and I know it's probably going to be a real late night for Barry, but we've got to get him in on because I mean he's also rocking
Mhm.
X80 Pro and Xiaomi 12s Ultra,
X80.
and yeah,
Xiaomi, oh,
X80
sorry.
Pro.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean those two, in my not so humble opinion, are the big camera sensor phones to beat right now.
Oh,
And the
absolutely.
showdown is really interesting. I'm writing up my notes now. I've
Mhm.
been shooting a couple samples. I need to get out and shoot some night samples
Mhm.
because I think it's going to be a really solid brains versus brawn.
Okay.
It's going to be the Vivo processing versus the hardware advantage of the Xiaomi, and I think the results are going to be a lot closer than
Okay,
people
good.
might expect based
I
on specs and marketing
I
claims.
honestly, I'll be very honest with you guys. I'm just happy to join the Vivo clan because I have the finally
Yeah.
I got the
What
X70
what
Pro Plus.
what
So,
do you have on your what do you have on your X70? What's on
so
there?
uh,
What's
it's the case. It's
what you
just
got there? Let hold it up. Let's see what's on the back of your what's
I
going
don't know.
on.
So here, it's I just basically got a nice little more rugged case with a
Ooh,
kickstand.
armor case.
Well, because I really, I'm serious. I'm going to be taking this guy out. Hold on, let me see. Can I hide my face? Yeah, I'm going to be
Yeah, yeah,
taking this
block your
guy out a
face.
lot. Yeah. So I'm going to be putting it through its
Mm.
paces. I am dying though to find a glass protector that works. These um
They're
glass
awful.
protector. Oh my
Oh,
God,
they're
is it
so
awful?
bad.
Like I'm out there and I'm like, why is it not responding
So I
when?
felt so bad because we let Bionic Scoop, who's in the chat. I think I saw him
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the chat.
yeah, yeah.
He took a test
Oh,
drive
Jeff
on
is
the
in there. Yeah.
X70 Pro Plus before I sent it your way, and I felt awful because I needed to have something to protect the screen. I can't let a phone go
The,
screen
it was
naked
bubbling.
anymore.
The screen protector, the plastic one, was bubbling
Well,
back when I first had it back in
Well, yeah.
January.
So
Yeah,
the plastic film thing, man, we shredded that fast.
yeah, yeah.
I found a glass one, and literally 3 weeks into having the glass one on there, I'd already had sort of a side crack on the edge of the phone. This phone
Yeah.
has never been dropped. I have put it in the dirt to get snail shell and flower macro photos, but it's never been raked. It's never been dropped. It's never been abused. But that screen protector was such hot garbage. Even sending it to Scoop, it was already starting to split on the side.
Yeah.
And so, I think he got it back to you in probably exactly the same shape that I sent it to him. But I was
The
like,
protector was
man,
okay, but I had to take it off. It was driving
you
me
have to
crazy.
take it off. It's
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
bad.
But then this case comes with the exact same protector, and I was like, okay, so at least I replaced it. I cleaned it up and put it up and back.
Right.
But no, no, dude, I was taking some shots
No.
with it today. No, that needs to be taken out. So I will baby the
Yeah.
display. I don't think it's gonna, get any hard hits on it. But I need to be on the lookout. There is a glass protector, but it's in India that is
Yep.
sold not by Vivo. It's another brand. So I
Hmm.
don't know if I'm able to get it imported,
Well,
but nothing in
the
Europe, nothing.
the one that I got was like a 2 week import. I think came from
Oh,
India,
so that
and it
okay,
was
okay.
awful. So I don't know if
Oh,
it's the same one. It could be, but it's real
uh,
bad. And I'm so anxious about the 12s Ultra and the X80 Pro. I was walking around. I was taking a hike today with both of those phones, and I was juggling them because I want to get the same setup for some
yeah,
of
yeah.
these photos I try to compose. And at least twice with each phone, I have that like heart gets stuck up in your throat. I almost just dropped $1,000 phone. Oh, you caught it. It's okay. It's okay. Put the
Heart
phones
attack
back in your
averted.
pocket slowly. Stand over grass. Don't stand over concrete. It's so bad. You know how average consumers use their
It's
phones.
exactly how my grandparents would have done it had they been
Exactly.
with us. They would have totally been like gunning it with two style now.
Yes. Every
Um,
pocket needs to be filled with some sort of hyperactive compute
it-
device
that's how. So
in a pair of cargo shorts.
weird enough. I mean, on a trip with family and stuff, I didn't. I mentioned this to Juan before. So I got the phone pretty close to when I was leaving. I didn't have enough time to be able to spend some time with it to test it out and so on. So I actually started the video in here in the
Hmm.
office and I continued it out on the trip. So all the pictures, like videos and stuff like that, I from excursions, from hanging out with the family. So all of those things were taken with the Reno 8 Pro. But it is hard. You're right. Walking around and going doing things, especially with family, having two phones and having to pull them out, and not worry which one's gonna, if something falls. So it's for me the X70 showed up right as I was leaving, so I didn't get a chance to. I didn't have enough time even to set it up. Let's just say that. So I came
Hmm.
back and then I started now I'm starting to set it up to use and so on. So I ordered the case when I was gone. So I'm excited to see what you guys have, both you and Barry. And yeah, definitely, we should have Barry on. Just sharing some love and of course seeing how you guys are hanging out with that massive 1 inch. Sorry, it's just I really wish they make it into an international device, but yeah, it's likely. I'm seeing a lot more content creators getting them, and they're starting to receive their. Look at that Leica. Oh my god,
Like,
I always
and
love
actually,
Leica
because
processors.
I got the green leather, and it's
Hmm.
really more of like an olive gray, and I kind of like it. It's got a
On
nice
camera, it looks a little bit
grippy
grayish.
texture to it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very subtle, and it's got kind of like a coppery look to the edges. It's not
yeah.
like that gaudy fake gold trim.
Oh, I'm
So
with you.
yeah, it's a solid looking device. Barry has his first video out.
Hmm.
I am slow playing my coverage on the 12S Ultra because this was kind of like one of those things. Like in the middle of the night, I said, "Well, why don't I just strategize more with the people who are on the Patreon?"
I noticed. Yeah,
In part, Patreon supporters are helping fund some of this tech chicanery, and
absolutely.
so there's an intro article that I wrote up just saying like, hey, this is what we're going to be doing to strategize. I already have a full performance breakdown on the
Yep.
8 Plus Gen 1.
Hmm.
Um,
I finally
if
got my
if
hands
I
on a phone that has
I'm,
that. But
I'm
yeah,
finally
finally,
now I need to get a few more phones just to see if these are trends that continue. I have a sample size of one of one.
one of one.
Um, yeah, so that's already on the Patreon, but it's basically piggybacking off of the charts that I published last week. So
Hmm.
I did a roundup on all of the 8 Gen 1s. And when I say benchmarking, obviously I include some Geekbench scores just so I can show everyone that Geekbench scores do an absolutely miserable job of predicting real world performance. So I've got video rendering, video transcoding, I've got file compression, audio mixdown and podcast creation, I've got batch photo processing, image stabilization tests. And so now I've run the Xiaomi through all of that.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to blow anyone's mind here, but the results on the 8 Plus Gen 1 are very encouraging if we're looking for high performance phones with slightly better power management. So this is going to be a monster part of the conversation. All this data will eventually make it
Hmm.
into some public facing videos, but again, with the community of people that are supporting the most directly, they're getting first crack at all of this data. You can check it out. It's
It's
going
on
to
the
be
Patreon.
really fun.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about because this thing really is a monster. Now we need to see what an 8 Plus Gen 1 is going to look like in like I don't know, like a $600 phone as opposed to a $1,200 phone to see if this
Well,
performance is
I think
maintained.
Red Magic teased already that they're going to be pushing something out, and they're going to be around the 6 to 7
Yeah,
anyways. So there's no doubt that we will see that. It's
I
just
I'm
right
positive. Yeah,
now.
but again, with a Red Magic, that's an even different like if we see a Red Magic 8 Plus Gen 1 with an active cooling fan and the Red Magic 7 Pro was already such a crazy performer for having that fan, cutting 10% or 10 to 15% off of the power draw would should also mean like
Yes,
man we should be cutting some thermals off of that chip running it at an insanely high
it
pace.
was running Undead Horde at 120 before we had
Yeah,
when we were running at the 8 Gen 1, and 8 Plus Gen 1
yeah,
should be way better and much easier to handle it by hand as opposed to. No, I'm with you. My thing is right now we're looking at 8 Plus Gen 1 on Chinese variants, right? It's
yeah.
typical that, Qualcomm chipsets always come out on Chinese devices made for the mainland China, because that's exactly how mine is. Mine is the Realme GT2 Explorer Master Edition, or Master Explorer Edition. The name gets confusing a little bit, but it's essentially Realme's first 8 Plus Gen 1.
Yeah.
So they announced it a couple of weeks ago. The little guy showed up when I was out, so I walk in home and I have something new to kind of like start playing with. But I barely got a chance to crack it up because we came back like literally about a day or so ago. So we're still unpacking a whole bunch of stuff. So I've been trying to just get back into the norm. It
Mhm.
took me about a day to get out of the whole swaying effect. I don't know if anybody's ever been on a shift long enough.
Oh yeah.
There's motion sickness when you get on. I did get that, and I got over that after about a day or so, and some medicine. Um, but then when you're on a boat for we were there for about 7 to 10 days. Uh, you get off the boat and you're like, why is it still moving? Why am I still at sea? I'm not at sea.
You got your sea legs.
Yeah, so that takes about a day to get rid of, and stomach still kind of needs to get readjusted. So otherwise, I'm getting better, getting back to dry land and all
Well,
these exciting news.
I'm definitely glad you're back. We've got El Jefe reviews here in the comments. Sensor
Oh
so
yeah,
big it makes all the other phones uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. Haha.
Now, this is actually, I think, one of the most encouraging aspects of this Xiaomi Sony partnership
Mhm.
is it's not permanently exclusive.
Okay.
So what we're getting a look at, and we've already seen this sensor, I believe, is also the same sensor that's in the new Sharp. So in a
Okay.
Chinese variant phone and in a Japanese variant phone, this initial partnership, this was co-funded between Xiaomi and Sony to make this 1-inch sensor. Sony is going to benefit. I'll be very surprised if Sony ever builds another Pro Eye style device and it isn't using this sensor instead of the older sensor that they use in their RX series cameras.
Yeah.
And then from there, anyone who's not completely stapled to Samsung has an option now. Samsung is going to have their 200 megapixel, I think it's a 1/1.28 inch type sensor. That's going to be a monster sensor.
It's not
going
the
to
one
be
that's
great.
going into the Moto, is it?
I think it's the one that's in the Moto. I think the one in the Moto might
Moto, okay.
be might be a
200.
Samsung. Someone please correct me if I'm off there, but I believe that is one of the ISO cells, and it's a 1/1.2 something. But then you have GN1 and GNV. That was a partnership with Vivo, and now you've got Sony partnering with Xiaomi. But their co-development likely just means that when another manufacturer uses the sensor, both Xiaomi and Sony are going to get a cut, which is really exciting to see that maybe somewhere down the line, this sensor ends up like, I don't know. I mean, like maybe Nokia decides that they want to take another stab at a premium tier device, like that could be the gig.
The Lumia,
But
the return of the Lumia.
Right, the return of the Lumia, return of PureView. We were talking about that in the Discord, and just like how sad it makes us. Like, the Nokia 9 was such an interesting phone. But the potential here is, I think, what's also exciting. We're seeing the first steps on 2 phones. This could potentially show up on other devices next year, and it is a fascinating step into the ultra tier. So I used to kind of break up phones with entry, mid-ranger, and premium. And now there's like premium to ultra premium. And there's like 2 distinctly different kinds of good camera experiences for a premium tier phone versus an ultra premium tier phone. And again, it's like you're spending a lot of money. There are very unique features. And honestly, if you put an ultra premium tier camera phone in an average consumer's hands, they probably won't like it as much. It's a little finickier to use. Your critical focus matters more. All of those manual controls benefit the composition, and the apps are so much more cluttered and complicated to learn the ins and outs. But then you put like a Pixel 6a in someone's hands and they take amazing snapshots. I don't see why you would never need to go to a bigger camera sensor phone. So there's something really interesting happening between like $400 to $600, $600 to $900, and then like $900 and above. And like the camera technology is radical. I mean, this is boundary pushing stuff.
Shift.
It's crazy.
The shift in camera tech when you go into the premium to ultra premium is ridiculous. And I think that's partially that's a big part of what makes it an ultra premium. It's what you can do and what it can do for you, as opposed to most of just adding the word pro into a title. Because we've had so many devices that have gone in the $400 or $500 and they're suddenly a pro, and I'm like, how does that a pro? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So, we're diluting the pro terminology. But you did mention, obviously, the Pixel 6a is also another big news hitter this week. Obviously today, by the way, happy Pixel 6a day to everybody in the chat.
Happy Pixel 6a pre-order day. I know El Jefe is also jumping on the Pixel Buds Pro.
Yes, I saw the pre-order for those as well come out. So the 27th was supposed to be the announcement day, so obviously that's going to still happen. I'm assuming there's still going to be an event somewhere or a virtual event. I thought either way, it looks like by that day, a lot of
Something.
people are going to be able to get their devices because it looks like at least these pre-orders will be shipping out during that time. So that's exciting. But what I wanted to actually double check with you before we jump into the 6A conversation on the Xiaomi.
Yeah.
Now this one this is a Chinese variant. Did they preload
Mhm.
Google Play services for you, or did you sideload that?
So
on your own?
the importer that I worked with did. So
Okay.
it came ready to go with Google Play services. I was able to download all my favorite apps. Like I said, I've already done all my performance testing. So
I know.
the
So I
apps
realized that
use
part. I
for
was wondering if like if somebody decides to pick something up, because like the biggest thing about when you import a device, the big first thing that obviously is how is this going to work where I am, right? And how
Yeah.
does it make and then there are importing companies that do take care of that. They're realizing that this is an international user wanting to import a non-international device.
This
So they
podcast not brought
nice.
to you by GizTop.
Aha.
We are not sponsored.
We are
but
not.
the
But if
reason
we
why
are, we are open to. Sorry.
and normally I wouldn't make such a big deal out of the organization that I'm using to try and import a phone. But the reason why I do also want to shout them out, fellow YouTuber and tech commentator Michael Peppertech had a Vivo X80 Pro. It took a tumble and he cracked his screen. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine a Vivo in the United States. I'm sorry, I should mention Michael Peppertech is United States based, North American based. And so that would be a very concerning development, not being able to get support. And he was able to negotiate a parcel, a delivery with GizTop. So they're helping him. He's going to send the phone back to GizTop. GizTop is going to work with an Indian supplier to get the screen and the glass repaired and replaced. And then they're just going to work out like shipping and they're going to charge like a very small nominal fee just to help facilitate everything that's going on. And so for some of those conversations, obviously this is still going to be time away from his phone. But for those people who are so concerned, like, oh, you're about to drop $1,000 plus on one of these import phones, if you want to try and use one here in North America, some of those lines of communication actually can still get that sort of support conversation done. Okay. And I think you'll have to like go to his channel, Michael Peppertech, and see, because he's been commenting on it. I believe the whole round trip is going to take time, but it's still going to be cheaper to replace the screen on a Vivo X80 Pro than to replace the back glass on an iPhone. So this is like, it's sad and it's frustrating and it takes a little bit more to get through all this, but like the actual repairs is going to be somewhat,
less expensive, but just time consuming.
Less expensive. And Michael Pepper just showed up in the chat. Apparently his ears were burning. So he could hear that we were talking about him.
Yeah. All good things, Michael. All good things, I promise.
So I had put in my order for the 12S Ultra before this had happened with Michael's Vivo, and it made me feel just a little bit better. Like, okay, I'm doing business with someone who at least like cares about that kind of after sales conversation. Like they're treating another customer really well.
It helps the confidence level go up. But it like I said, so but things like this, if you're thinking about picking up an X80 Pro, or picking up, let's say, a 12S Ultra, or even any other devices, I mean, I always find it interesting that a lot of companies will put their high, super ultra premium devices only for Chinese markets. Like Xiaomi's done this in the past. The 10 Ultra was never an international device. Last year, out of the blue, they for some reason decided that the 11 Ultra would be. And even when it was available, a lot of people told me it was very hard to get. It's not an easy device to pick up, even if you could find it. And then, of course, this year we went back and there was no 12 Ultra, but the 12S Ultra is a Chinese only. And I'm hoping against hope, I guess, if we'll have a variant that supports the same sensor, the same technology, but maybe not an Ultra, something to the effect. We'll see. Xiaomi releases so many devices.
Yeah, for sure. But I think these kinds of phones are going to be very limited in scope, region, and distribution. The parts that go into them are insanely expensive. The manufacturing that goes into them is insanely expensive, and you're working in such small quantities that makes the devices even more expensive, even more of a cost. They are Halo products. I mean, you've heard me say, like, you go to a Nissan dealership and you're not lusting over the Nissan Sentra. I've made that joke so many times.
We had the exact
12S
2 weeks ago. I know. I
exactly. Right. So the 12S Ultra is not. Yeah. Do we have replay on that?
Yes, we have the tape right now. Yeah. Sorry.
The 12S Ultra, I mean, it's such a specific kind of photography halo product.
Yeah.
This is a billboard to showcase a partnership with Leica. This is technology that will filter down in smaller ways
Oh yeah.
to more mainstream devices. This is not intended to be a daily driver casual purchase. This is in the markets where this thing will sell. This is, you are making a statement by owning and using one of these phones. And it's a shame because, like, here in the United States, oh, it's an Android, so it must be a cheap phone. I like good phones, so I bought an iPhone. Everywhere else, it's like a Vivo X80 Pro is not a casual, that looks like a fun phone. Maybe I'll pick one of those up.
Yeah.
This is meant to be a very limited and kind of exclusive sort of experience. So I very much doubt, with component shortages, with manufacturing costs, with distribution costs, with licensing fees. I'm sure Leica has a very specific kind of licensing for how their brand can be used in different parts of the world. I think it's going to be very, very, I mean, if it does get an international release, I think it's going to be a very targeted, specific pockets of a couple of regions, but not broad global. I think it's going to be a harder phone to get your hands on.
I don't doubt it, and I think that's pretty much. Like I said, we're lusting over it because we're creators. We are fans of technology that help us create and do better at the art form that we put ourselves in. So there's obviously, this is targeted at us because that's what we look for. And we appreciate camera tech and lenses and different tech that is put in there to provide us, DSLR or SLR's kind of technology handheld that makes it so that we never have to carry cameras and lenses and everything. And our pocket computer is actually really good at content creation, capturing those moments that you don't want to miss. And it gives you that flexibility. But you're right. A Pixel user, a 6A, or even a general Pixel user would probably find even some LG devices back in the day when we had LG around. The camera app can get a little bit daunting as far as the controls, the audio, the exposure, the inputs, and all the different things that you can. But I'm looking forward to seeing what your content comes up on it. Like I said, soon enough, hopefully we'll be able to check it out. We'll do a little trip. I think we talked about it. We'll hopefully be able to do a little bit of a trip here.
Well, I definitely want to tackle some indoor. Again, I loved going to the dinosaur museum. So
yeah.
I feel like we also need something. Yeah, cars. Yeah, similarly, kind of a dark, moody.
We mentioned it on the show. We've set the plan in motion.
We're doing it.
We need to pick a date and show up with our gear. That's the best way to say it. But yeah, no. So maybe next. I don't know if Barry wants to jump on, or maybe we can set it up for next week. Maybe we can have Barry on the show and talk a little bit about some experience.
I'll slide into some DMs, see what he's doing. Yeah. If he can handle a late night. I mean, he's an old like we are, so he might be like, nah, it's my bedtime, bro.
I'm trying to get back into my old bedtime schedule. I'm messed up on a whole.
I mean, you were on a mother flipping boat. So.
Absolutely. But I will say this though, surprisingly enough, on the way from San Francisco, boarding the flight we were getting on the United flight from San Francisco to LA. I saw the most amount of Pixel smartphones, Pixel 6 Pros on a single day. So I think I was on a plane with a whole bunch of Googlers because there's the chances of that many Pixel 6 Pros on the same flight. Like they were all scanning their boarding passes and you could see the bar. I'm like,
it could be legit. I'm telling you, Pixels have started showing up heavy.
It was crazy.
At my daughter's school.
I was like, dude.
Parents at my daughter's school, I'm seeing some Pixel 6s. Mostly Pixel 6, not Pixel 6 Pros, but
I saw 3 6 Pros in a row, like 3 separate people ahead of me, and they were like all first class and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I see how it is. I'm like rocking. So I was like, okay.
So actually, Barry, if you can hop on now, we could have you jump in now.
Yeah.
Do you want to? Let me know. Here, I'll get the invite link ready. I'll send it to you. I was about
to say, you have the, you can.
And if you want to jump in, you can jump in. Twitter. If not, we can totally try to plan for another.
Yeah. I would.
We're not trying to put you on the spot. If you can't jump in right now, or you're tired or something, it's totally fine.
Barry's like, gosh, gone it. Where's that?
Oh God, guys, come on.
Okay, let me get my cup of coffee. We're doing it
But
live.
but but again, it's going to be fun because right now there are so many of these back and forth kinds of comparisons that you pick up a Vivo, you pick up again, it's like once you crest the tier of a Note 22,
Hmm.
once you're in the ultra tier of phones, everything gets hyper specific. Like for example, both the Vivo X80 Pro and the Xiaomi 12s Ultra have 5 times zoom telephoto cameras.
Okay.
They are very different sensors. They occupy similar focal ranges, but the performance is very, very different. And what you would lean on for one for photography is completely different from the other, which is better at video.
Hmm.
And you're constantly like trading that back and forth, and the fight is just incredible. Like it's so much fun when you're sort of honing it in, like, oh, this is what I would use for this. This is how I would tackle that. A Sony can show up and you'd be like, oh my gosh, the video capabilities are incredible. You know, the Vivo X80 Pro blows me away still with night sight, but then the low light raw files from the Xiaomi I'm like, again, there's so much meatiness to dig into. It is interesting, like we are purposely separating that tier out because if
Yeah.
you climb, if you slide down just a little bit, I'm telling you, the camera experiences on a OnePlus 10 Pro,
Hmm.
an S22 Plus, an iQOO 9 Pro, a Xiaomi 12 Pro. These are all phenomenal camera platforms. They're stupid good,
Hmm.
and it's noticeably different when you crest over to the bigger sensor phones. And like, to have anyone kind of sit back and go like, oh, but you know, average consumers, and you're like, well, screw them. They're not playing with this stuff. I want to see what these things can really do.
Right, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys appreciate about it. But I still think this is a very much niche product that I personally wouldn't there's a very small number of people that I know that I would even recommend this type of a device to.
Oh,
Um,
it's hyper specific. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
very,
It's
very.
super
It's
niche.
absolutely, yeah. No. It is one of those things that you do. You need to purposely go into. You don't stumble on. Again, it's like it's like saying I just happened and I bought a 70 X70 Pro Plus by accident. No, you don't. You don't go. You don't go that far. You don't go
Oops.
that. Yeah,
I,
and I
I
think that
tripped and then $1,200 fell out of my pocket, and now I guess I own a Vivo.
I like this.
Yeah,
Decade and
screw
Mama
them.
wants. She's
Well,
enjoying it.
I mean, in spirit, I did mean more the people that would hold up a $1,200-ish phone and talk about the average
The
users.
average user. Yeah. No.
But it came out more pointedly towards the users themselves. That was a bit more of a slip of my,
As
port.
so Barry said that he's available. I think you and I both
Oh, I
probably
sent
sent him the
him on Twitter.
yeah, I
Yeah.
did the same exact thing. So as he's getting ready, I do want to mention real quick. So as Juan was mentioning, a few things coming up. The Pixel 6a and the Pixel Buds Pro. The official launch is next week on Sony on the 27th. Are both in pre-orders. Should be available around that time off of Google. Your favorite online retailer. OnePlus also dropped a massive note, obviously, this week with the announcement of, I guess we're getting the T series back, which is kind of, I'm like a little bit confused as to okay, so we can get a standard 10, but we're getting a T, and the T has a better processor than the first. So I'm like, okay, I'm confused now.
I
I'm,
think a
I'm,
lot of manufacturers are gonna be stuck in that situation. Your
I'm like,
refresh, yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of refreshed sort of upper premium mid rangers or lower
because
premium
the T
tier
typically is
phones.
a lower,
But
not a, so in my understanding, or at least the way we've seen in the past, the T has always been in between the standard and the pro model. That's where the T kind of fits. It's better than
oh,
the
see, I always
standard.
just kind of felt like T was refresh. You know,
Well,
like OnePlus 8, OnePlus 8T.
yes, but it's technically better than the 8, right? There is something, but the
But it
refresh
was
is what you're talking.
technically less expensive to manufacture than the 8. The 8 had the curved glass on the screen. The T had the flat glass. They had the
They
same camera
exactly,
sensors.
and so
So
it was
then
kind
the
of
8T gets slightly better charging. So I feel like I mean, for a lot of these manufacturers, T or S or whatever mid-season ends up, sort of being a refresh. But I think a lot of companies are going to get stuck where you're refreshing your lower end phone, and that's going to be sort of what highlights the second half of your year, and you're going to end up with a better processor than your more expensive phone that you launched earlier in the year. And Barry, what do you think about all of these wacky
Barry,
refresh
come
T-series phones? Hey, welcome to the show!
Well, hold on. Barry's
So
our guest. He gets in the middle. He gets the center stage. Go ahead.
So well, thank you for having me on, first of all, TK and
absolutely.
Juan. But
So glad you could jump in, of course.
but the T series to me is a little. I can understand where, like, if you bought some of the older ones, but I'm kind of excited about it just because what it brings as far as the newer processors, so that's
Yes.
kind of what I'm looking at, right?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm confused, but I appreciate the fact
Yes,
that
it
they went
is.
with
It's
the newer
don't forget,
over-
it's complicated timelines that we're
Man,
working
it's
on.
so complicated.
You
It's you know what? I don't know that we've made that joke as heavy on
Oh
this.
yeah, I don't think
it's complicated.
Tech reviewers are going to be so confused.
They're
It's
gonna be
just so
confused.
complicated. But I think this is one of those opportunities that we have for our circles of family and friends as techies, and when we get into this kind of stuff, there are going to be pros and cons. Like, just because 8 Plus Gen 1 is out, that doesn't immediately mean that we chuck all the 8 Gen 1s in
Yeah,
the dumpsters.
I agree. I totally
We
agree.
don't.
We just have to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
I know,
Right?
right?
I thought I was cleaning up all my.
You're
ink-
clean.
I just cut to a lonely scene of TK
No,
with a push
I
broom.
got my first 8 Plus Gen 1. I thought it was dying, right? I chucked. They're all hot garbage. They can barely
but
boot Android. Sorry, go ahead.
It really, I think it really comes down to us now saying, like, we've got to be a bit more specific about, like, well, what is it that you're trying to do? What kind of features do you really care about? Obviously, battery life and thermals, these are all part of the conversation too. But if it's not really going to impact a user and it gets them something that's going to be closer to their price point or something that they really care about. So I think this is actually going to be a little bit of a challenge that I think most North American tech reviewers are not up to.
No.
They do not deal with that kind of nuance. And so it's up to us as like, allow me to gatekeep for the proper enthusiasts here.
Correct.
In our chat, because you guys have excellent taste. But no, seriously, like now we've got to really kind of break this stuff down and listen to people who say, like, well, this is what I care about. I care about battery life. I care about a camera that can do this, and I don't want it to be more than $800. And you're like, I know what phone to get you, but you just got to trust that I am actually thinking about all of these individual bits.
Yeah.
all the different variables. Exactly.
And someone put in the chat, or Aditya. So I missed out on the OnePlus 7 Pro, and I am so upset that I missed peak OnePlus.
I have my 7 Pro in blue if you want to take it for a test
I have to take it
drive.
a spin because I'm missing.
If you
something
missed
with
it.
Yeah.
So as soon as you'll get it, you'll realize, you'll just hold it in your hands and go, oh, well, the better phones that OnePlus has made since the 7 Pro obviously are inferior because the 7 Pro exists. You'll throw away your OnePlus 10 in shame, even though it's demonstrably a better phone in almost every way. But it doesn't have a pop-up selfie camera.
Yes.
It was a fad. It was going on, and everybody, and it was dropped faster than anything. It was like 1 year we had a couple of pop-up cameras, and I think my brother was rocking it for actually the longest time. The only reason we upgraded him to the 8 Pro was because it lost support. He wasn't getting any more. It would be getting no more support. So I wanted him to be on something a little bit newer. And I still needed the 9 Pro,
sure.
so I just, but yeah,
I know that struggle too.
It's a tough thing, kind of like, do I give him the 9 Pro, and am I done with the 9 Pro? I know I'm on the 10 Pro, but like, it's a tough one.
It is tough because the 9 Pro has that widening, that 76. Yeah.
But the 8 Pro for him too, kind of still, it sleeps over what he had with the 7 Pro, charging and all of that. So he has the 7 Pro. So he has the 8 Pro, and his wife now has the 8T. So I've converted that family into OnePlus family.
So how did you do that? Because I mean, OnePlus is so bad, right?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
So
It's
I mean, pardon as I speak for TK here.
yeah.
Just through, I think, some little nudges of our own influence, you can sometimes find those family members who are a little bit contrarian. My mom is like this. She is not letting go of her OnePlus 6T.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Her phone is still faster than most
Yeah.
of the mid-rangers that the rest of our family uses on Pixels. My phone's still more powerful than that Pixel 4a. I'm not getting rid of my OnePlus 6T.
Yeah.
She's just not going to do it
Not
until
gonna
like
do
the
it.
phone is non-functional. And I kind of feel like, again, for TK, when you sort of see that in a family member, you can kind of nudge. By the way, this other phone exists, which will be different than what all your friends and family carry.
Correct.
But they've been on it since, like, he's been on it since the 3T. I got him into the
Ooh,
6, and
golden
then I got him
age.
into yeah. He's appreciated the OnePlus's journey, so he's a big fan. And then we got his wife
Yeah.
on it. I got my in-laws on Pixels, so the Pixel 3a, Pixel 3a XL. So, and they're loving it. Pure, easy, simple, fast, and got Android 12. So you have to kind of, you tailor the recommendation. There's no
You
one
have to
size.
tailor. Yeah.
It's
And
what they need. Yeah, and the
but
3A is more than what my in-laws need. They need great pictures, easy to use UI, simple, and updates. And that's all I need. I need to make sure they're updated.
so TK, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, don't. I kind of know how Juan feels, but
Loaded
when you
question.
hit, yeah, when you hear, like, what kind of drives me crazy is when people will take like a Pixel or a OnePlus and they'll
Mhm.
say, "Oh, it's missing this feature," and then that just scraps the phone. Like, there's no talk of, "Hey, how could it fit this person and their lifestyle? What do you like to do?" It's like, no, it doesn't have this, so we'll just eliminate it. Guess what? You got to go buy Apple, Samsung.
Um, so the biggest thing I always, when somebody asks me, is like, what are you recommending on the phone? I always started off by slightly understanding where they're coming from. Before I recommend, I always want to know, because whatever they're going to compare the new device, they're always going to base it on what they know. So if they've been, Team Samsung for years, and I do have a family member. My mom was Samsung all the way till the OnePlus 8. The last one she said was the 7, the S7 Pro, S7 Plus. They didn't do Pro back then. So she was on that for a while, and then it was a big thing for her for Samsung services. And when I converted her, I made sure to explain, look, they don't all one-to-one map, but they exist, and this is how we understand it. If you have any questions, we'll go through it. But with anybody else, I always start by saying, look, what is the core experience that you are looking for on this device? What are the things you love? If they're an iPhone user and they're like, the first thing they say, like, I want to make sure it has iMessage, and blah, blah. Like, okay, I understand. You're pretty much stuck in a specific thing because that's what it
Yeah, yeah.
works. For OnePlus devices, I look at them and I explain and say, look, this is based on speed. This is going to make any phone you've come from before look slow. It has all the features that Android offer. If it doesn't have the exact same thing, it'll have something that's very similar to it. And let me show you how we map one to one.
Okay.
If it's missing, I explained to them, I said, look, if this is something super important, then we need to change the recommendation. But this answers everything you're looking for, and it does get better. So this is where I kind of tailor.
So you
I
wouldn't-
appreciate
so-
that
but-
because because I want to just point something out here, Barry. TK is one of the kindest
Yes.
and one of the nicest men I've ever met in my entire life, and I appreciate that he went to the positive application of helping his family and friends. I feel he dodged the question
Yes, I
about
was going to say.
reviewers, though.
Well, no.
And I would just like to point out, I believe Barry was asking about how do you handle it when someone's giving bad advice in a review and telling people to scrap a phone because it's a little less familiar. Please continue with your examination there.
The best way, the only way I can answer that question is a direct. I'll be. This happened to us. Was it last when the OnePlus 10 Pro came out? I remember an article, and I don't remember the publication. Their specific recommendation was, "This is not good. Buy a Samsung or an Apple," and that pissed me off. I don't typically get because they're just blatantly lazy.
Yeah, it's lazy.
You didn't
It's
like
lazy.
you like seriously, like purely for clicks, purely for whatever you. I mean, I just felt like I wasted my time reading that article.
Yeah.
I
there are
wasted my
things
time
like,
reading the headline.
no, absolutely. And there are content, like I saw a video today, of somebody comparing the Pixel 6a to the Pixel 6.
Oh, hold on to that. We're gonna have
Yeah,
plenty,
yeah.
I think, to
That
say
was
about the
like, yeah.
6A.
So I will say this. I will go against the recommendation. I'll explain exactly what is it that
Mhm.
you have and what is it that you're missing. And if somebody makes a recommendation saying you need to go to Apple, Samsung, honestly, it's BS, because it is latency, and I would go into that and explain it. I try not to, as Juan was explaining, my approach to everything is always try to look at the light and try to follow the
Yeah,
message,
yeah.
because at the end of the day, whoever is getting that recommendation, they're going to be basing a certain amount of time on that. If they made a purchase, they're going to be stuck with it. So you need to figure out a way to help them understand that you're not stuck. This is not bad. Let's get
Yeah.
through it and make it happen.
Correct.
But it sucks that there are
It does make
people.
me sad, where I feel a lot of people are probably wearing the wrong size clothes because they listen to reviewers
Yeah.
that are basing more
Yeah.
on
Or they
popularity
go into
metrics.
Best Buy or go into Team, don't get me wrong, like T-Mobile, whatever. And
Well,
all they
again, just
see-
recommendations that aren't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
informed by their needs, and it becomes more of just like, well, what's popular, what's really selling. Well, everybody likes
Correct.
this phone.
Yeah.
I do want to circle back before we cover Pixel 6a, because
Yeah.
we've got to spend some time
Yeah.
on Pixel 6a. Ooh,
Yeah.
wow, stutter came out bad.
Aye.
Sorry, guys. Usually I have that under wraps. Before we cover that,
It's
we
that
got
kind of
some
night.
viewer-submitted artwork that I think Barry will appreciate here.
Okay, let's
This just came in from one Steve DeRoche. I've got to share my screen, which is always slow for Juan. Just showing off my
nice,
Minion phone.
nice.
Oh my
Steve
God.
was quick on the draw with that one. That's
Nice.
flipping
Apoy,
hilarious.
That's
Oh
perfect.
boy, I love it. I love it.
So I felt you could relate, Barry,
Definitely.
to having a Minion
Absolutely.
phone as well. So I want to take, and because you were kind enough to jump in, and I know it's a late night for you, and a part of this commentary, for what I've really enjoyed on your channel is a very specific kind of conversation delivered with a very chill vibe. What were some of your first thoughts? Like, every phone kind of has a story. What was it that you wanted to focus on? Because you've got your first Xiaomi
Yeah.
12S Ultra video out.
So now I get to really have fun with it. But to me, it's performance, and bokeh has entered the conversation. Like, it's truly entered. And not that we're not getting that on the GN1 sensor or the GNV.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But it's like it's really up and personal now. And I think people kind of struggled switching just over to the Pixel series. There was people that were contacting me via DMs like, hey, this is messed up. And it was because it was a depth of field issue. They were using the old, series, the 5A, and trying to take the same picture. And they were wondering why they were getting this background blur, right?
For sure.
So that's kind of what I want to focus on. And I really want to tear into comparisons of what we get. And your writing on the performance stuff was outstanding. Like,
Yes.
yeah, no, it was good because it kind of paints a picture of what I thought was happening based on some early numbers I saw. Because most people go ahead.
I mean, like, don't feel like you have to be so cagey about like what's totally private on the Patreon and stuff like that, because I feel like these were the conversations all three of us were having in DMs,
Yeah.
and I'm sure a number of our viewers and listeners have been kind of thinking about too. I think we've been in for a couple years of shakier performance. Qualcomm and ARM focused on more performance, but at the expense of power. And now it feels like this is a first step to try and course correct.
Oh, I agree. And
that.
and TK, just so you know, my thought process was up until I started to see these numbers come out. This is like the last few weeks. I was thinking that it was all about the MediaTek 9000, and I told Juan I'm getting a MediaTek 9000. I made a switch. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have to do something different, to send them, because I think it's about the Dimensity 8100 and the 8 Plus Gen 1 right now.
Yeah.
So
8100, it's amazing. It's an amazing.
It's so
a great,
good.
oh my gosh, you know.
Well, that's what's running on the Reno 8 Pro. That was what
Yes.
excited me. I
Yep.
was actually running for the last 10
Yeah.
plus days or so on an 8100 Max, and it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
No stutters. No, I mean, there's no.
Nothing.
The 1200 is even great, but
Yeah.
going into the 8000, and then OPPO making, that's one thing I like about MediaTek. They love to make custom editions of their chips, and they continue to that. So the Max is going to be OPPO's version.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Vivo will have their versions and stuff like that. So I want to see more devices. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and the thing about it is, what MediaTek is not that big of a margin, but they're the largest, right, for CPU. But
for SoCs and
for SoCs, right?
and
Across
and
consumer
IoT.
electronics.
Consumer
Yeah,
electronics,
absolutely,
right.
for sure. Yeah, they
but
dominate there.
but it's great to have competition, and this is kind of the things that gets frustrating at times when people want to paint things black and white instead of looking at nuance. Because when we don't look at nuance, we don't reap the benefits. Like literally, if you had asked me at the beginning of first of all, let me just kind of give you a background, right? So I was never looking at Vivo. I was never looking at OnePlus.
Oh,
Juan hit me up and he was like, "Hey man,
Juan,
are you
OnePlus.
sure?" Like, yeah, he goes, "Take a look at this video on the 8 Pro, right?" And then like he asked me one day, he goes, "Hey, are you sure that you like Xiaomi's MIUI? Are you positive? Maybe you should check out a Vivo." And then I was blown away about the cameras,
Yeah. I had a lot of fun because the iQOO 9 Pro made a few trips.
Oh man,
And like that one so rocked my socks in that like what should we expect from a phone in that like S22 plus tier. So I feel and again, this is a little bit of a spoiler for the article that I published on my Patreon. What we have in the 12S Ultra, TK, what you're playing with an 8 Plus Gen 1, it's still an 8 Gen 1, but it's refined in a way that allows us to see a new direction. It doesn't completely undo some of our concerns.
No.
What have your experiences been? Because again, I mean, like, I think each of us have different ideas in mind on like, how am I going to drive this phone hard? You've got this 12S Ultra. We have to believe Xiaomi has put more engineering care and consideration into the thermal design of their Ultra phone, especially after the Mi 11 Ultra. What are some of your sort of ideas on testing performance and some of the benchmarks that you try to hit with your phones?
One of the things that I do, I'm going to do a lot of video rendering, but one of the things I love to do is the stress tests, because that gives me a good indication of the sustainability of the CPU over time. And another thing is it tells me where they're exhausting their heat. So I thought Vivo did a great job with sustained performance on the Vivo X80 Pro. However, everything's exhausted in the back. And I think TK, I'm trying to remember which phone you reviewed. I think it was a Xiaomi that did the same thing.
So
if I'm not mistaken,
most of my Xiaomis have always exhausted
to the back. Yeah, so it's
back,
like and some are worse than other, I guess. But that's what I'm really looking forward to see, because right now I haven't tested it to that level yet, but I haven't noticed that like it seems on my end a lot cooler than it was on my Vivo.
Okay.
So it seems more efficient, which I'm very happy about.
So those are the things so video rendering for me is a big part. One thing I learned during my trip, for some reason, that I ended up using Premiere because my laptop, I didn't upgrade it to DaVinci, so I still had Premiere, and it was spitting out like literally 15 to 16 gig files, and I can't upload that much, so I was re-rendering my videos on my phone on the 8100 Max, just using Power Director. I'm re-rendering my 4K 30 video, and it cuts it down from like 5 gigs to 1.6. So that is a big part of what I do. I need to rely on my phone, and it needs to perform without tanking. Xiaomi for me is the biggest thing I've always struggled with. Xiaomi is it is basically untethered power access.
Yes.
Right. Xiaomi doesn't throttle, doesn't like. Okay, you want an
It's like Xiaomi and Moto. It'll run as hot as you tell it to.
You want to cook your breakfast, we'll cook your breakfast. That's essentially the level. So I'm interested to see what they do with the 12S Ultra, because in earlier this year, because I already had the the 12 Pro, they definitely heat up. Yeah, they
Yeah,
lived up
that
to
was
what
the
we
reason
thought of the 8
why
Gen
I
1.
didn't purchase the 12 Pro. I wanted to get the 12 Pro, but I
Mhm.
was like, this is a throttle mess, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm gonna skip it.
Yeah, and it's the first out of the gate. It's
Yeah, it was
typically
first out of the
I feel
gate,
like yeah, not as much. I mean, I'm pretty sure they had more time on the 12S Ultra. They planned it. It was purposely built in that manner.
Yes.
But to see what TSMC is bringing into the table over Samsung, that also is what everybody's been waiting to see. That
Mhm.
shift in production, does that
Yeah.
benefit us? And I feel like this is what they should have started off. I feel like TSMC should have been there from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Yeah,
Like our
I
conversation. Go ahead, Juan.
Oh no, I mean because like it's just the realities of the semiconductor industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have not been a fan of Samsung phones, but no one can fault that they've got an impressive footprint in flash memory and in storage and
Yeah.
in chip fabrication. And I was really ready to lay the majority of the blame on Qualcomm.
Yes.
Mhm.
We know it's an ARM reference design, but Qualcomm is putting in their own compute units and AI cores, and they configure the chip, and then they hand it off to Samsung to fabricate.
Yeah.
And now seeing what the 12S Ultra can do, I'm redirecting some of that. I feel maybe now a bit more of that blame. I wasn't ready to crucify Samsung just because of everything that was going on, but this is one of the first times I can think of where in Android land we've been shown such a clear one company made this chip, one company made that chip, and how significantly different the performance characteristics are. I mean, we're talking, in some gaming applications, 2.5 watts less power
Yes.
draw to maintain
Yes.
60 frame per second.
Yes.
I mean, the 8 Gen 1 is a monster,
Yeah.
but it can draw almost as much juice as like a netbook, a little thin laptop. I mean, your phone was not built to handle that. I'm now feeling like it's okay if I maybe point a little bit more of my criticisms towards
Yeah, I
Samsung
totally
Semiconductor on this one.
I think I feel more comfortable than you guys do. But and fun fact, my best friend Sasha worked on all the processors up to the Snapdragon 888.
Oh.
So yeah.
Yeah,
That's good times.
I'm just happy I got the 888 running back here, and it runs very nicely on the X70 Pro
Yeah.
Plus. I mean, seriously.
I mean, again, the first half. I mean, because again, I don't want to just write off phones with 8 Gen 1s because I think they can be managed
Yeah.
well if the manufacturer builds the phone around those power considerations appropriately. But there are a few phones like a Galaxy S22 where I pick that up and go, man, I wish this had an 888 instead of an 8 Gen 1.
Oh, absolutely.
This would be a lot easier for me to make it through the day.
Yeah.
So I definitely like in talking performance, I found a really hard thermal throttle point for the 12S Ultra on one of the most brutal tests that I run, and I couldn't be more excited because 8 Gen 1s typically throttle sooner or more dramatically. And there's a balanced performance option on the 12S Ultra that actually, this isn't a placebo turbo button.
No.
Like you got your gray box PC and you push the turbo button and you get an extra megahertz and you're rocking and rolling.
Us back 30 years, Juan. That's
I know, because I'm old.
Unveiling. Yeah. Might as well put an age sticker here. Sorry.
It makes me really happy where, unlike some other phones where I feel your performance mode is a placebo button, it is a very different conversation on the Xiaomi this year. This is like, if you need the horsepower, you can run this thing even hotter,
I think
but
TK
you have a little
mentioned
extra
it
headroom.
Was it one of the POCO gaming phones you had mentioned? Like I could have sworn you had talked about it.
The F4 GT had the
F4.
gaming performance. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's their version of the Black Shark, for the lack of a better, it's a Xiaomi family. But yeah, no, but Xiaomi has the very specific approach, which, like I said, it's the thermals and it's the untethered access. I feel like we wanted better management, and I think the F4 GT does a better job. I like it more specific. They were purposely building the hardware in there. The battery connectors where typically the power draw is generating heat, were purposely put on the opposite side of the phone so that you have some heat dissipating on the right side, some heat on the left because of the SoC, the cooling mechanism. So they did some things to it better than what we got with the 12 Pro. And then, that's why I'm interested. Like I said, I want to see how the next generation of devices. We don't have anything in the US yet. I think the OnePlus 10T is the first announced, if I'm not mistaken,
first one.
to land on US markets with this type of hardware. And I'm also interested to see kind of like how OnePlus approaches it, because obviously there's going to be OPPO, OnePlus kind of thing. So we'll see other OPPO devices come out. The 8100 Max, I want to see devices with that in the US. I want to see 8100.
Yes, I really do.
The 9000 didn't make it out of China for some reason.
No,
it's
it
China
didn't, no.
only.
Yeah,
like 9000, 9001, but
Yeah.
8100, because the Reno that I have is a UK edition, so it's international. So MediaTek is putting their foot down. We're obviously going to hear more from them later on this year. Tech Summit was announced earlier today for Qualcomm. MediaTek also typically has another event somewhere later in the year.
I'm not sure who could do it. I was thinking, like, out of all the manufacturers in North America, one of the only ones who might take the chance would be TCL.
So
because they played with
that's true.
They played with some
TCL
MediaTeks.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe.
I was going to say Moto, but maybe not Moto. I don't know if OnePlus would put a MediaTek like an 8100 in a Nord.
But I
That's
can't
too
remember.
high. Too high. We don't get the higher end Nords. We get the low
True,
budget.
we get the
side.
lower end. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Europe will get the 81 probably.
But I mean, if TCL were to give us a return to the Pro, because like the 20 Pro was a really nice phone.
Yeah,
It
this
was
year's
beautifully
been
built.
This year is the delineation.
If they gave us a 30 Pro with an
No, there's
8100. I would
30.
be-
Yeah,
that'd
they're
be
at an MWC. It was a lineup of 30s. There's like 30
Yeah.
XVE, all the alphabet going on.
I think they just announced another one. Like, it's another $150 30 series TCL. And you're like, great.
Their approach this year is very different. Yeah, they shifted gears into the look. We want to take over what LG's budget line was doing. They went in
Oh,
there.
yeah. They're totally eating up market share at low-cost carriers.
Absolutely.
They are on
They know what
point
they're
with
doing.
that strategy. That is a
Absolutely.
make-money strategy. So, speaking of that, Barry, on a scale of 1 to 37, how badly did Google fail with the miserable showing that is the Pixel 6a Ready Go?
37 hands down.
37, exactly.
37.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So everybody, thanks so much for watching. Smash that bell icon.
Appreciate it. Yep.
You should basically just buy like an iPhone SE or a Galaxy A53.
Absolutely. iPhone SE all
Yeah,
day.
totally.
Yeah.
It's really the best advice that someone could give.
It's the only advice, really.
Oh, I was incorrect. I misspoke. It's the only
advice.
Thank you. That was a very germane point that you just made.
Well, on that note, I'll be going to sleep now.
It's bedtime for all of us.
I'm still on sailing's time. I'm just kidding. Maritime. Sorry.
I'm very anxiously excited for the 6A.
Yeah.
For a number of non-consumer facing reasons. It's strategy, it's logistics, it's support, it's Google unifying their hardware and software. It's knowing that the consumer, the mainstream bread and butter phones are going to be better optimized out of the box than the Pro phones. I don't mind being a beta tester if I know that the next phone my dad gets is smoother when he runs, because he's on a Pixel 4a. He's never going to buy more than a $500 phone ever again.
Correct.
And it's not that he couldn't afford it. It's that, not worth it. This is great. I don't need anything more than this. And so I am very amped up for what the 6A represents. Again, in one of those conversations, this is not a phone for me, doesn't mean I can't appreciate the vast number of all these so-called average consumers who would do really well with this phone. So I'm sure we can all find some critical reactions to some of the coverage of this phone. But really, I'm just excited to get my hands on one because I think it's going to be a really solid daily driver.
Oh, I totally agree. Go ahead,
I'm going to be very forward in saying that my son is more excited about this phone than I am, and I'm excited for it. but my son's like, when's the 6A coming?
Oh
Yeah.
wow!
Yeah.
That's cool.
I got him on a Pixel 5A, and he's been on it for about a month now. Ever since he graduated, and he finished elementary, he's going into junior high. So he's had his full experience of a smartphone. He really likes it. And then he heard me through a conversation one time. We were talking with Juan, and he's talking to the 6A, and he's like, "Wait, there's a new version coming out." He's like, "What is that going to do?" And then so I showed him with the Pixel 6 Pro, and I said, "It's going to look like that." He's like, "Oh, I like that. I like it. When is it? Do you have it already?" I'm like, hold on, man. Hold your horses. Like, he's ahead of me.
Give it a,
He's ahead.
Give it a minute.
He's ahead of me. Yeah.
Even my wife, we did a podcast together where she talked about her Pixel 4a 5G, and she got real excited. Like, I told her this phone is basically as powerful as the LG G7 that you're giving up, but it's probably going to feel faster because it's new. You're going to be setting it up fresh, all this stuff. I mean, Pixels, they run a little leaner. LG software, especially from the G7 era, wasn't always the best. And even she was like, so what Pixel do I have again? And like, you have a 4a 5G, but the 6a is coming.
Yes.
So that's two newer.
Yes.
One that I have.
So
like, even my wife was like,
it is a big standard, and so I'm excited for him because he's going to appreciate it a lot more. I still personally would prefer the 6 Pro, but some of the commentary we're starting to see, some people's and I don't want to say call it attempt to grab at just titles and so on, but I always look at the device, and whenever I try to review it, I look at it and try to measure it against what the manufacturer, what it's trying to do, what they advertise it's supposed to do. The claim, because that's what what it has nothing else to compare itself other than.
Well, obviously, Google is claiming the best high refresh gaming experience.
That's what they're claiming. That's what they're claiming.
With the biggest possible camera sensor and the worst battery life.
Yeah,
that's obviously what they would be claiming. I feel, Barry, you probably know, at least 4 people in your circles of family and friends who would likely enjoy the Pixel first and foremost for what it is, and then would be tickled by how much it costs. Am I off?
Absolutely. Oh, no, you're not off at all.
Yeah. No,
right. I just kind of feel like that's fair.
I'm just loving the fact that, like you said before, Juan, they're unifying the experience. Tensor is powering everything. We know how much Google can do with the dual 12 megapixel camera sensor. We know that it's been done. They've proven it for years. The Pixel 3 XL started us off, and it continues. So it is not. There's no question where what corners were cut or what tailoring they had to do, but it is for a $449 phone. If you wanted to trade it in, this is the other thing. Their trade-in offers are actually pretty good. Like, you can trade in a 3A and get up like almost $300 in there and get this new phone for $150 more. Like, it's crazy. And I think that's what we should measure it for. And that's why you should be excited for it. It's a budget-friendly price device that gives you the power of the best that Google has to offer. It gives you access to some of Google's best services, technologies, and it is going to get better with time, and you will get the software updates. And I think that's why I'm excited for it. And it hurts me sometimes when you see it and you see some narratives going around in a different direction.
It's literally the iPhone 13, but wrapped in an SE price for your entry point to the Google ecosystem. That's what it is.
Yeah, and that's the expectation that now.
Correct.
The level that they've set the bar. Now they've learned from like all these experimentations and things that they've been doing, and we appreciate what all of the updates that we got on the 6 and 6 Pro and the growing pains that we had to go through at the beginning. Yeah, I think that's the benefit of it. It lands on a much better. But I wish the advertising campaign around the 6A was also bigger than what we got with the 6 and 6 Pro, right? Put some more push.
No, I agree. I think Google kind of misses that or drops that ball. They really need to. And I think one thing that Google does that kind of surprises. This is just me outside looking in. I know you guys, everybody knows you, right? How thorough you are, how fair you are. But it almost comes across that Google at times partners with people that are never going to give their phone a serious look. They're never going to give it a real spin. So they're literally going to pick it up and go, oh, this has 60 hertz. Who would actually even want to even be in the same room with a 60 hertz phone?
I just threw up in my mouth by you saying it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Hey, son, can you hand me that iPhone 13 over there? Oh, we won't mention that 60 hertz, right?
You were camping in Ike's stream before this,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I loved it because there were all these people like, well, I mean, what they need to do is, 120 hertz matters because that's what really makes a phone feel more fluid. And some of the comments were, I mean, I appreciate that as an opinion, but the sales data does not bear out.
No.
And we'd never hear the complaints against an $800 iPhone 13, which has a top of the line SoC and which has a 60 hertz display. We'll always move the goalposts on that. And I feel like this is another one of those very clearly demonstrated showcases where someone's conclusion wasn't born out of real lifestyle experiences with the product.
With the product.
And is being informed by what kind of traffic their videos get, which then manages how their commentary runs so that they know they can always make the most revenue on whatever sponsorships that they're looking to achieve. And I feel like a lot of people, a lot of consumers get harmed.
They get
when they're looking for advice. And look, this channel has 10 million subscribers. This guy must know what he's talking about.
I have to listen to it. So I had an interesting one as well. So there's someone that had recently said on Twitter, they had recently said that they had put their S22 Ultra in their drawer. They had put their Pixel 6 Pro in their drawer, and they were not going to use them anymore because he was so happy and satisfied with his LG V60.
Yep.
And today he got on Twitter to quickly say the Pixel 6a is trash because it only does 60 hertz refresh rate. So it did? Wait a second. Maybe I was in an alternate timeline, but I could have sworn
a more complicated alternate timeline.
I could have sworn when the LG V60 came out, like it wasn't people going, "Hey, I just love this 120 hertz display," and goodness, this 4K panel is just unbelievable.
The only thing I could maybe give them is if they were a die-hard dual display user.
Correct. No. I'm not saying the LG V60 was one of the best phones that year.
But to complain about refresh rate
and
on a $450 phone is pants on head stupid.
Oh, it's crazy.
But he's also coming from a 60 hertz refresh rate display. That was the whole. Oh, yes. Juan and I had a long conversation back.
Oh, so many.
So many days.
Talking about the V60.
No. We had years of conversations. I'm sorry. I digress. We've covered it tremendously on how fluid and how much work LG put into the V60 and making sure the UI and everything ran correctly at 60 frames. Even at the time where, yes, 90 hertz was the bigger thing. Why didn't we go 90? Why didn't we go QHD? But yeah, I'm very surprised of going from 60 1080p panel to a 60 1080p panel, and then that's the sticking point at $450.
That's the sticking point. And so he cannot purchase a 6A because he's going to use a 60 hertz panel on his LG. He loves it.
An iPhone SE with 64 gig of storage and one camera sensor and an almost standard definition display.
Almost
$430.
Yeah. Yes,
and we're sitting here and we're picking apart the Pixel 6a, which is $20 more expensive than an iPhone SE and is demonstrably better in every single possible metric that a phone can be better at, and goes toe to toe, like actually manages some healthy competition against a phone that costs over almost twice as much, over $300 more than the Pixel 6a. And I feel like we've completely lost the plot and we're playing a really silly popularity game.
Yes. It absolutely. It's like you guys have said it many times. I'm not going to obviously, but it does a disservice to the viewer.
It does a disservice to the viewer
when you're coloring the conversation based on how your SEO and how the metrics are, and you could see it like it's lazy writing. Seriously, like I don't really love that. But I'm very glad, and I feel very blessed that we're part of Team Pixel, and I do want to mention that we've been, both Juan and I, and we've had.
I'm pretty sure I'll be hashtagging gift from Google on a few posts coming
I'm
up.
pretty sure quite a few of us will. But what I want to mention is specifically is that the narrative gets set in a weird. I feel like the timeline needs to be given. Like, I understand it's trying to get the headlines. This year is very different, right? Like in the past, we never had the reviews go a week before the actual launch. It's typically on launch day.
Yeah.
This year they're doing pre-orders, which is nice. And it's they did it in India and in the US, but you're also
they have a little bit more reach this year.
Yeah. So they're doing better, but I feel like the conversations now is a little bit like we're having to come up once we join the conversation. To try to undo some of the other conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah, and exactly. I feel like it shouldn't be that way.
That's what my point is. To me, I don't understand all the decisions made by Google, because like if it's just that you just want to keep this noise, like if we really think about, since it was released, the Pixel 6a has stayed in the news because of people just can't use the phone. It's just such a broken experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we starting that because like the people that are on Team Pixel that don't have to wait now, again, like you said, have to undo all this damage?
And the hope is that the people are still looking. They haven't just brushed it off.
Your comments, well, it's got a 60 hertz display. Man, my iPhone 12 has a 60 hertz display.
Your $1,000 iPhone 12 Pro.
But here's a little bit of a kicker that a lot of people don't even realize. Even the expensive phones, even the 12 Ultra, the Note 20 Ultra, 22, all of the Ultras, out of the box, they're set to 1080p, 60 frames per second.
And they don't know that.
They don't know that, and none of the review tell you. And so people that are paying like $1,200 or whatever, if they don't know that they need to go into the settings tab and change it to go to QHD at 120, they never know, and they've been living it, but they're just living on the hype of what they heard, and now like, mine's 60 frames. I'm like, you're running at 60 hertz, bro. You don't have 120. You need to turn all of those bells and whistles on because Samsung knows out of the box.
It's like when you buy a fancy new gaming monitor, but you didn't actually go into your settings
and turn on
this monitor is so great. It's so smooth.
It was sort of like there were tech reviewers that they're non-technical. They're in the tech community, but they're non-technical tech reviewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when Apple came out with ProMotion, right? They got their phones and they're like, Apple did this right. Finally, we can have. It's like, wait, only a couple apps running, and that's at that speed.
No, but they did it right.
They did it right
because Apple did it
exactly. And I'm like, you're running 60 hertz on majority of your apps right now.
Yeah, I know.
But I can see the difference. I can see it.
When I slide through these poorly organized widgets and app panels, I can see all 120 refreshes per second. I don't know what it is, because I feel like, especially for the A series Pixels, a lot of North Americans have had it out for them. I remember the initial response to the 3A feels very similar to the 6A response. A lot of these super confuzzled, why does this phone even exist? What is Google thinking? Kinds of reactions. And, again, the Pixel 3A significantly outsold Pixel 3s. Who would have thought that a less expensive Google badged phone would sell better than a more expensive Google badged phone? And I think we're going to kind of dovetail some of the mind share for Pixel 6. I think the only thing that might have slowed some of the Pixel 6a adoption is how price competitive the Pixel 6
the
was.
Pixel 6 is very price competitive.
I'm sure that stole some sales
had to.
from the 6a.
Both the 6 and 6 Pro were priced strategically at that $899, $599. That was like the monster. And you saw Motorola jumping into that price. You saw OnePlus jumping in. They knew that's
it revolutionized mid-rangers in the United States.
It did. Yeah.
So
they got it.
And I think the biggest thing I think what'll happen at this point is the 6A is going to carry us through next year. I realize the 6 and 6 Pro, they're on their way. The 7 is going to be coming out. The 7 Pro is going to be coming out, but those are not going to eat up out of the 6A. They're still in their own premium experience.
Correct.
Upper, premium to upper premium. So like I said, No,
I'm sorry. I mean, because I think I was leaving some obnoxious comments, I think, in one of Kimmy's streams a while back. But like, I kind of feel if we're tech enthusiasts and we're looking at bleeding edge, we now have to expect that a certain part of what we're buying into is going to be beta testing. And I don't believe out of the box, the 7 and 7 Pro are going to be the perfectly polished new builds of Android, new SoC.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We should be seeing some teething pains there. But the 6A should arrive. I have much higher expectations on the 6A.
Yeah.
So
That's the
I kind of
exciting
feel
part
like
that I feel like people are missing the point there. It's like
Yeah.
you're like way ahead, man. You're just like focusing on the wrong. It's tough. It's like it's maybe it's just like you said. It's fun to bag on OnePlus. It's fun to bag on the 6A series or the
well,
the
it's low hanging fruit. You know,
It
it's
is.
low-hanging fruit,
Yeah.
But it's just lazy.
it's not even a
It
challenge.
really
So
is late.
I go
It's
back-
not a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But also just kind of for anybody that's listening that may be considering getting the 6A, they're also throwing in a free pair of
Free
Pixel
pair
Buds
of
A.
Pixel Buds A. Yep.
I was like, come
Yeah.
on.
Oh yeah, it's like,
like-
it's a good deal. Like,
And those are good buds. Those are the good
oh, absolutely.
Those are
Those
the
are
updated. Yeah, those are the ones
Yeah.
we much better. Obviously, the pros are coming out as well. Those are different. A couple of hundred the pre-orders on those. But for $449, you're getting a free pair of buds, $100 pair of buds with the phone. And you're able to get obviously, just some of the best experiences on it. Better integration with Google Assistant, audio performance, better upgrades to what we had before. The
Sure.
audio, the signal, there's no issues with the transmission, no Faraday cage with Juan's testing as he does usually with the headphones.
I'm telling you, I don't know what it's up with my back pockets, but apparently my ass.
I didn't
just
want to
kills
say
Bluetooth signals.
I didn't want to say your ass was, that would have taken the
It
show.
is. I say it. I feel it's
After
okay.
dark.
We're friends here. TK,
Yes.
you can make comments about my ass. So Barry, I feel like I know what the answer to this question might be, because I feel like we're all fans of competition here, and even for phones that we might not personally daily drive.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you felt about the 6A launch that was lacking? We're into this pre-order. So many people have like been asking for Google to do Samsung style promotions or Apple style trade-ins. Did you feel like anything was missing, or that like the actual logistics of pre-ordering a phone somewhere dropped the ball?
Yeah. So logistic wise, I didn't have, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the launch, but like I said, my sticking point has been who gets the phone early.
Gotcha.
And what the agenda is, because that to me kind of kills everything else afterwards, because it becomes a whole thing on Twitter, it becomes live stream fodder where everybody's, going back to taking this away or trying to, discount what was said. Right. But other than that, I thought that it was okay. I personally, though, would like to see them market heavier across the board. So you have the A series and you have your main line. Make sure everybody's aware. It should be plastered everywhere.
Even if they go one quarter of the budget they spent on the 6 series, the 6 Pro, they would
it's a cash cow. Like this is the
and
magic
they know it
price
works.
point.
They have the numbers. They should know how the 6 Pro
the
did.
numbers support that people are more willing to buy a flagship Apple phone than they are an Android phone, right? No matter how much I'm playing with them and all that stuff, that doesn't matter, right? It's, if we look at the numbers, that's what's happening. So if you get behind the 6A and get in the door, then the whole conversation changes.
Because traditionally, I don't think it was ever a surprise that the A series Pixels did outsell
Correct
the more premium tier Pixels. I wonder
the
if
4A sold out in pre-orders. Remember when the 4A was coming? Sold out in
the
pre-orders.
4A was actually hard to get your hands on.
Yes.
Yeah.
The 4A, not the 3 and 3, not the 3A and the 3A XL, which did very well. The 4A, it was cheaper than the 3A and the 3XL, and it sold out. Like you couldn't get it for the first month or so. Like,
And I believe that with less of a marketing push, to your point, Barry, with less of a marketing push, and the fact that we have seen, Michael actually posted this too, that at one point we saw the Pixel 6 drop on sale at $499. And at a $50 price difference between a 6A and a 6, I'm enough of a nerd to say, bring me that GN1
I
camera
have
sensor.
to get the GN1. Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
you know,
It's the same.
So I don't think sorry, the last thing I was just going to say, I don't think we're going to see quite the same lopsided sales. I think 6A is going to be a part of a spectrum of Pixel 6 sales where the Pixel 5A and the Pixel 4A and the Pixel 3A were substantially better sellers than their more premium counterparts.
Yeah. Look, I agree. I think it's more about, part of it is awareness. Part of it is also making sure that, the conversation gets continued beyond the initial headlines that were grabbed. And then I think, like I said, not all of them, obviously not everybody was in the same boat, but what I wanted, the big thing that always, like, I feel weird, like it's just, you have to understand what the piece of tech is and speak to what it does and how it fits into the ecosystem. People need to make a decision based on what this piece of hardware can do, and the constant comparison to other things on the market that maybe the person that's going in there maybe would never have seen too. Like, don't get me wrong, I think iPhones are great. I think Android devices are great, and they fit a specific market. But other than us, the general tech enthusiast group that will have two devices that we can do these comparisons, most users go in and they're coming from one single point of reference, and you need to talk to them and explain.
And they're trying to make that point of reference 3 or 4 years old.
Exactly. But that's why I always ask, what are you coming from, and what is it that you value the most, and let's see what we can get you in now. That is
what you got, Barry?
So
you've got something.
I know how we do our testing right now, right? Do you think this could be a possible good, differentiator, right? So what about if, like, let's say, for instance, Pixel 7 comes out, Pixel 7 Pro. We get the phone, and the first thing that we do, it could be first video, we put all our information in, and then we pick up the phone, and we double-click the power button. And then we just see how fast it launches the camera. And if it's not fast enough, we'll just say, hey, we can't recommend this phone. No. I'm going to make it easy myself. And you just go on. That could be one of the tests.
Your kids' pictures are gone. You're not going to be able to catch that moment. Sorry,
I shot the camera launch at 480 frames per second, and it was 3 frames slower than on my Xiaomi.
Yes.
So
can't do it.
You just have to keep it real. You have to keep it straight to the numbers. It's slower. It's just not going to cut it.
It's not going to cut it.
Numbers don't lie.
Exactly.
Okay.
They could be skewed. They could be very subjective, but they don't lie. They're just telling a different story.
I think this is one of the things, because again, I don't want to turn this into a bummer. I want to actually focus on some of the stuff that I think is more positive about this launch. Yeah. Why I feel this is kind of a bummer is we're going to have to work even harder to get one of the most important parts of this conversation out there. The story is competition away from Qualcomm, competition for services. Google is a services first organization. Alphabet is a services first organization. And there are still too many of these situations that I run into with the few pockets of friends that I have that are on Android that haven't been pulled over to iOS over the last 2 years, where they don't really know what their phones can do. Like, every time we get together with my family, it's like, oh yeah, show me how to use nearby share again. And when you've got so much YouTube algorithm momentum behind lazy conversations, we miss what makes a Pixel really interesting. And genuinely, like, I like Pixel cameras. They're not the shooters that I rely on. I think they're easy and they're simple.
They're it's point and shoot,
It's the most beautifully simple camera app.
Correct.
Apple can miss me with their recent changes to their camera app. I really think Google has polished something special. But then I show someone just like putting a business on hold on a Pixel.
Exactly.
I show someone speech to text so that they can kind of read through the menu tree of their pharmacy while they're on a call. I show someone transcription tools. I show that it actually kind of matters that a Pixel is now more of a personal assistant device than it is, a social media camera device.
It's a tool. It's a perfect tool to connect you to the ecosystem of Google. I mean, that's literally what it does, and it does it so much better than. And you can do it straight to comparison. How speech to text, how fast when you're doing on-device processing matters, as opposed to having, if your internet connection is a little bit slow. And I'm not gonna lie, I had that on my phone because it would have to connect, and I would I hit microphone and I had to wait because the internet was not fast enough. I would wait like 3 seconds before it tells me speak now, and I'm like, that was frustrating. Like, I wished I had my 6 Pro with me on the trip. I was like, but yeah, no. Those are the things that
I mean, we've got Jeff in the chat, man. I still use a Pixel for 100% of my thumbnails and social media posts, not to mention using the Google Voice Capture for script writing and Google Docs.
Absolutely.
Assistant voice typing. Yeah, so more on the positive note. So yeah, I'm a pretty big Pixel guy. So it's always part of, I carry 2 phones daily, right? So it's always there. Even during this, it's the worst phone ever, worst launch ever. It's always been my daily driver. And I think the conversation is the thing that you can do with Google phones, just talking to the phone. Like, I can start composing an email just by talking to
the punctuation, just the fact that it knows when to end the sentence and jump to the next one. Come on. Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, so direct my call, all the stuff that Juan mentions, I use constantly. So I'm in support, so I do that. And I really think what is being diluted, and I kind of question, like, is there a sinister thing behind it? Because when we look at a POCO X4 GT, great phone, right? It's a global phone. People over here are not going to know what it is. Like, they're just going in. This is probably the most important launch that we've had in quite some time. It literally changed the game for mid-ranges. We literally went from, the A line is this mid-ranger, it's great performance, it's cheap, to now they go, wow, this is a mid-ranger. They pick it up and it passes the smell test or the eye test with looking like a flagship. And then, by the way, that's the Tensor from the Pixel 6. So I think we miss quite a bit. It's like I said, you hate to be the person that's like, there's a sinister means behind it, but it almost feels that way.
We're having to have that conversation because the narrative is preset to us.
We have. You'll hear people, TK, that will say, what's terrible? The camera sensors. They changed the camera sensors on us. Oh, you mean the ones that they've been using for how many years now?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
The one that they've proven they can. Yeah.
The one that's. They got the good sauce now,
Yeah. You mean they made them better?
Yeah. It's like, what do you mean? What do you?
I think there's something really exciting here where there is a not insignificant number of people where I would maybe even say, hey, if you have a Pixel 5, maybe flipping that Pixel 5 over for a 6A could kind of make sense. You're giving up the 90 hertz refresh rate display, but you'd be on a whole new track of software and support. You'd have similar camera sensors. You'd have a demonstrably more powerful SoC to back that stuff up. And you would be on the current track where we know Google's going to be giving all those goods to the Pixels first.
Yeah, the Tensor. And they're focusing.
I normally wouldn't say, hey, if you have a premium tier device, because the Pixel 5 was that kind of crossover mid-ranger. But there's something kind of exciting where
flagship they had 1 year.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a transition.
But there's something kind of exciting about saying, like, you could make that jump from what was a $700 phone to now a $450 phone, and it's probably going to be better in almost every way but the screen refresh.
Correct.
That's not something that happens. I mean, you would never see, don't get the iPhone 14, get the iPhone SE because it'll be better and cheaper. Like, that's never going to happen. We're in a very unique position with the Google, with the sort of the beginning pandemic Pixel, that you could make that jump. I think it would be worth the effort of flipping your Pixel 5, potentially. Obviously, we don't have the phone yet, and there still need to be reviews and things, but there's never been that potential on another manufacturer as directly.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not.
Yeah. So the conversation is still going to be obviously ongoing. Team Pixel hopefully at some point will be able to be able to contribute to the conversation. And sales are actually, you're able to pre-order it and get it literally next week. That's how early they're aiming on getting this. The hardware
1st,
into people's hands. Yeah. Actually, if you go for the
July is almost already done.
If you go for the priority, you can get it on the 27th.
Oh wow,
that's gross.
It defaults to the standard shipping because I wanted to go in there and get the Sage one, that little more.
the green, yeah, that green.
That looked nice. And I was in there. I added the buds and everything like that, and I was like, as I was checking out, it said basically August 1st, but it said standard shipping. So I clicked it. For $15.99 extra, you're able to get it slightly earlier.
Oh wow,
it's worth it if you're
definitely worth it
if you gotta get on into it. But I'm hoping at some point Google figures out the mechanics because I feel like they're still experimenting.
Oh yeah, they're definitely
experimenting. This one I felt like if they stuck to last year's approach, that made sense. I don't know how this is going to be, but like I said, we'll have to see how when Team Pixel is able to join in. I do want to say I think if I'm not mistaken, I think European Team Pixel already started. Is it? If I'm not mistaken,
I think so.
Because there were some I forget what I saw.
They're ahead of us
they're ahead. Yeah.
Last year they did the same thing. They got their Pixels, so hopefully we're not too far behind. Let's just say I'm
sure
that's.
But here's the other thing
sorry.
Here's the other thing that kind of makes me excited about potential. Again, I like to wear my heart on my sleeve and get my hopes up and have those hopes dashed on rocks. So we're seeing that just because Google is putting out their own SoC, that they're not aggressively dumping that SoC every cycle, every generation. So we've got kind of the carryover. We know that, Pixel 6 Pro launched late last year. It's carrying over into this year. And if we see life on a mid-range Pixel tablet next year,
yes,
as a way to keep costs low, a Tensor is a wonderful high-performance chip, which I think would do even better in a larger chassis that can manage some of that Samsung-influenced power draw, because we know the Tensor can run a little warm. My experiences have been a lot better now with some software optimization from updates and stuff. But again, if we see that we can get almost a 3-product life out of every SoC, that gives me a lot more confidence on longevity, on support, and that when issues arise, Google is going to be able to kind of see, well, okay, well, we've got some app performance issues over here. We've got some AI performance issues over there. And then as we get into like good consumer facing gear that's not prohibitively expensive, every generation of this kind of comes out a bit more polished and a bit more. I mean, it's the thing that we can give Apple some credit over. Very rarely have they ever taken serious missteps with the A series processors. And it's because they are very iterative in their approach on how they tackle that. Google putting this into 3 generations of products over 2 years, to me, speaks to a consistency and a longevity in their approach that I think we should be excited about. It's not sexy in the same kind of way like every year we're going to see crazy benchmark scores, but it's comforting and it's consistent, and it means we should actually get a better polished product over the long run.
Correct. And they're going, with it being assistant focused, they're going for a slightly different thing than, like, let's say a Red Magic 7 Pro, right? Where so I think they were smart when they launched Pixel 6 to say things like, if you look at the benchmarks, we might not seem as impressive, whereas Apple knows they don't have to really upgrade the processor at all. Their fans are like, hey, it magically just changed on its own. It just feels faster for some reason. Good old Apple.
Well, I mean, not from iPhone 13 to iPhone 14, but there'll be reasons why an iPhone 14 gets to be more expensive. I'm sure Apple will
They'll figure
do
it out.
something
There'll be that
special
special
to-
software mode that only gets released on that version,
Yeah.
which makes it the
Right.
Pro. Yeah, no, it's always been the the gatekeeping of pricing and features and so on, and it could be, you know, maybe better lenses and better hardware, but at the end, I think what people need to appreciate is, you know, like I said, appreciate the tech for what it's supposed to do, what it's been promised, what the manufacturer's promising, and obviously how does it meet your needs. If you are looking for something that's a little bit more rounded, well-rounded, and a very good assistant to you, I think Pixel series
Oh
have
yeah, I
proven
think it's-
themselves
yeah.
very year over year, and it's an easy recommendation. I mean, when my mother-in-law and father-in-law used to be, they came on from an Honor 7X, the last Honor 7 series that we had in the U.S. because they were U.S.-based devices, right? And the only reason we upgraded them because my mother-in-law's battery started to expand. I think I talked to you about that one. So got her into the 3A, and then when my father-in-law time was at the upgrade, and they both love it. They're on it all the time. They're very happy with it.
Yep.
And it's a perfect recommendation.
Mhm.
And this is why like I said, I always try to tailor the recommendation. My brother and my sister-in-law would probably enjoy a Pixel, but they like the customizations that OnePlus does, and they like what OnePlus does in their UI elements on the phone. So they've loved it. And upgrading them from one OnePlus to the other, it's like hey, this does this and this does that. And my brother's loving the cameras. Yeah, from the 7 to the 8, from the 7 Pro to the 8 Pro is a big jump.
Oh, it's a huge jump.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
mean, I
yeah.
know he would have loved the 9 Pro,
Well,
but
let me rephrase that. Sorry, it's not a big jump. Actually, it's worse.
Oh, yeah.
OnePlus was the 7 Pro. Sorry about that.
That's right.
That was my fault.
7 Pro. He enjoyed the 7 Pro because that's the peak. Everything ever since then has been,
Everything was
it-
downhill.
yeah. Just watch the chart, kind of. Yeah. So
So Gabelette actually brings up an interesting question. I wonder what your guys' thoughts are. If Google is going to keep the Samsung partnership or move to TSMC for a future Tensor, what do you guys think?
But
I'm
yes-
thinking Samsung is. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so-
I'm reading the tea leaves, and every time I hear something from Google, Samsung's in the background. It's
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, that's yeah.
I mean, come on. We're talking about Pixel Watch, right? Samsung.
Oh,
Tensor. You know,
it is using an Exynos core, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Pixel Watch is going to be on an Exynos.
As I was excited for Qualcomm talking about the new processor, Mob Voice coming in there, Oppo's coming in there, and then they mentioned obviously Google, but they were more talking about Wear OS 3. So they seem to have at least an agreement for the near term, and we've seen it in previous even IOs and announcements. And they're referencing, security upgrades that Samsung's been doing, and they've incorporated quite a few things Samsung's developed, like the dual display from back in the day. That's something Samsung developed, and then suddenly a part of Android. So, yeah, at least for the near term.
Yeah, for the near
Yeah.
term, I agree. I
Yeah.
don't. It would be nice, but yeah.
Yeah. Google.
And then
Sammy or Sam
probably,
Google.
if I probably be like, well, okay, can we do some high performance gaming? Now that TSMC is involved, can we speed up the timeline, so to speak?
we
I'll
need
be
better.
really curious to see because we're seeing Samsung face some difficulties. Rumors are pointing to them using Qualcomm on S23s, that there just might not be
An Exynos,
Samsung
Exynos,
version SoC for next year. The plans for ARM's reference cores and what Qualcomm has been showing off with a much more modular sort of chiplet design where different core configurations can very quickly be stapled, sort of custom for different manufacturers. I'll be curious to see, because I feel like at least for the next Tensor or 2, so for Tensor Gen 2 and maybe for Tensor Gen 3, our performance expectations should be sort of a half gen behind what Qualcomm is doing. The Tensor 1 feels like it was really built to compete against an 888 and ended up spending most of its life competing against 8 Gen 1s.
Yeah.
And I feel like the same is gonna, like, we're just, chips take
Yeah.
2 to 3 years to design and fab and build.
Yeah.
And so I'll be curious to see, like, definitely not for Tensor 2, probably not for Tensor 3, maybe for a Tensor 4 we could see some kind of shakeup, but also by then we might see some other industry like Intel might give up some of their foundry space if they get some of these tax subsidies that our government's talking about for some of these like infrastructure plans. So there could be some other competition we don't see in the next 2 years that might be able to give TSMC a little bit more of a run for its money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a continuing story, but I'm excited to see where the move is and what the initial answers or the numbers that we're getting out of it. So, Samsung, Google seems like they're aligning themselves up and they're working. I mean, Samsung's had Wear OS on lock since launch. It makes no sense Wear OS 3.0 being there. So, yeah, we'll have to see how things kind of move forward, but. The biggest thing I'm always excited to see is I want to see, not excited to see, I want to see the consumer benefit. I want to see the competition provide us better features, lower pricing, and more competition in that realm. And we're seeing that now. The mid-range market is
it's
getting very busy, and we didn't have that in the past.
No.
We're seeing more of that even in the US. And the 6A is
I
well.
don't think
Will do very-
I disagree. I don't think we've seen as much of that kind of conversation in the United States. I think we're so much better exposed to international phones that have been playing with 870s and Dimensity 8100s, and that I mean, what other? I mean, Barry, can you think of another United States-based phone sub $500 MSRP,
No.
not on some crazy sale, that is coming out with an 888 performance tiered chip?
Yeah. No,
Well,
no
Barry
device-
can't think of anything, so
No.
I mean, I feel like
Not US
the
based.
experience that we have in the US market has been very much it's controlled. It's very carrier controlled.
Dimenity. I just
Oh,
got
yes.
LaShawn.
Yeah, no,
Dimenity.
it's
Sorry, that's another joke that we don't really
Yeah,
dig
yeah,
into
yeah.
too much on this podcast.
it's one of those things. Like I said, a lot of the conversations we don't get to see a lot is how much the carriers influence the conversations of
Yeah.
smartphones, and there's a big part of that that's partially why we are in the market that we're in. This is why we're
Sure.
so hungry
Correct.
for some of this tech that we see. But you're right, Juan. You're right. We are exposed to a different experience. We see what happens in Europe. You know, when nothing drops a phone drops in the nothing phone, not nothing. Sorry, the nothing phone one drops.
When nothing drops, we're totally there to
not
talk about it.
They have more competition there. The 6A now is going to be in the same realm a week after the nothing came out.
Sure.
Do you buy the LEDs or do you buy the phone that you know that's gonna keep getting better and do better for you? So those are the things I feel like we're missing. You're right. What I was referring mostly regarding to is like even on T-Mobile or AT&T and so on, like the Samsung A series, you know, the A53, the 852 did much better. The A53 has a slightly uphill battle, but it is a mid-ranger. It does feature a decent processor, but we're seeing more mid-range, and those are the ones that typically sell. We're not getting.
That was very nice. That was nice.
Yeah,
that
he was like, it's okay to just say the A52 is good and the A53 is not.
No, the A53 was they're doing the one step forward, two step back concept.
Yes.
I
don't
I
get
did-
it.
Yeah, because I was like, lost the headphone jack. You get a worse processor, and I was like, how did that make? So yeah, no. But this is Samsung. The year of we take things away and charge more. Not years of continuing.
Yeah.
It's the song.
It's been a lobster pot
Yeah.
effect there. So basically, Barry, what you're saying is everyone, and we'll cut out this part of the podcast and send it to Sean.
Yeah.
That everyone basically just needs to go out and buy a Xiaomi 12S Ultra and not be poor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not be bored. 12S Ultra solves all your issues.
You need the bokeh. I'm just telling you,
You
that's
need the
exact.
bokeh.
You just need to just start with that, and then that's it.
Yep.
You know what's actually kind of funny too? Again, I mean, you say things like that. I'm sorry, this is because I have no concept of linear thought. Things like the Pixel 6a are probably going to deliver better computational portrait modes.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
I think so. We'll see when Pixel 7 is released, but I know it was sometime around January where in San Diego there was like 10 job openings for people that did image processing for to work on Google Tensor, the upcoming Google Tensor processor.
Okay.
So Google is aware, right? You know, like that was one of the things I led with. I don't use portrait mode on the Pixel 6, and this was from the very beginning. And I know there could be updates or whatever, and I still haven't seen those. But I just once I saw that I could do this to my composition and get the natural bokeh, and I started doing that. But it would be nice just to tell someone go to portrait mode, click, and you get it right every single time, like the Pixel 6a.
Yeah. So okay, it is still my hypothesis that it's a problem of training these algorithms to look at the softer depth of field blur.
Yeah.
I was using the 12S Ultra minutes after I got it, and I would like to share with you all now. This is before the OTA, because there was like a little bug fix OTA.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't wait for that, and like a doofus, I went running out like, I gotta take some pictures. So here is the very first non-patched portrait mode photo that I took from the 12S Ultra. And again, gotta wait for screen share right there. Okay. And ta-da!
Hey, perfection!
Isn't that amazing?
Perfection.
That shallow depth of field. It's a filter, right? It's a TikTok filter. How to do the anime? Right now.
So again, it's kind of failing to find the edge of where I'm out of focus, and then it blurred everything.
You know the sad thing, TK.
Was there anything that was actually in focus, or was just no?
No. Well, listen.
Not even the baseball cap. Not even the top of the cap.
The sad thing is, LaShawn and I know someone that would say, "Great photo. Maybe I'll include it in my video." like.
I'm putting it on the big screen right now. I'm trying to find it.
Yes, it looks like someone we know.
Like it may be Juan. I don't know. He's doing something. Yeah.
I mean, again, I was doing my flash blur so that no one could see my true identity. I just like when
you did a decent job isolating you. So I'll say this: it isolated you very nicely.
Yeah, it did the isolation.
The separation. You can see the different level of blur, but it looks like it's double duty.
MPT coming in with a stinger. Good job, funny. Sir.
Oh yeah. That's why we need to get Juan some better.
That's another thing. So if we speaking of the 12S Ultra, right? One of the narratives that were coming out, like I think people started to see how excited someone like myself and Juan would be to get this 1-inch sensor, right?
I'm gonna just hold my.
The narrative was it doesn't do 4K on its front camera, in its selfie camera. It doesn't do 4K video.
No. Is that true?
And the
has that been verified?
Yeah, just toss it now.
So real quick, I traded a lot of messages with Juan. I'm sure you did as well. Did you lead with, man, I can't wait to get a hold of that 1-inch sensor? Or were you like, man, is there a way we could improve that selfie video? Because I kept getting that. Like, I mean, you don't know how many people were going back and forth with me. Like, why would you even look at that phone? Like, when I said I wanted the phone, they were coming into my tweets. Like, why would you even look at that phone? It only does 1080p. You need a real phone. I said, oh, like a OnePlus 10 Pro, a OnePlus 9 Pro, a OnePlus 8 Pro, a OnePlus 7 Pro.
Well, like, it definitely goes back to to the point that you made earlier. It's like, I can't let you just have a competing nice product. I have found one thing that phone doesn't do that the brand I like does do. And again, I mean, like, if you'll pardon me screen sharing some stuff here.
Yeah. While you're doing that, can I just say something real quick?
For sure.
For TK's benefit. Mm-hmm. So TK, I guess what was happening, like when I said I wanted a Xiaomi, and I'll probably go to those people and hold my Xiaomi, and they'll say, hey, this is only 1080p selfie video. Happy birthday to the ground. I won't be part of your system. Sorry, I had to go Lonely Island reference again.
Quite all right.
We're all
so
about the, yeah.
It's so incredibly easy to look at the reflective
Oh, yeah.
chunk on the back of the
Yeah.
phone, and like I haven't really been
look,
using this enough to have trained
yeah.
my muscle
So
memory. I'm just looking at the back of the phone.
and you're holding it out, right? Like that's not a selfie stick. That's just you holding out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I noticed too. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be in my next video. But one of the things, so I got a lot of people like Michael Cochran. He participated. A lot of people participate in my community poll. Like, what do they want me to see testing, right? And Cobra, who's a great creator, he had asked me, he was like, hey, he's been looking at, so Cobra has had like A9s, he's had all types of, A7S3. So he's like, Barry, please replace your camera and focus on you. I want to see what the bokeh looks like to see if it's something I could use for. And I've already, just in the little testing, I haven't even made the video yet. I'm like, you definitely can get by with that 1-inch sensor. Now, I mean, that would be, I wouldn't want to just use the phone for that, but
So I understand, sort of the laziness of picking apart a data point like that, but I've just been around so many, like on my desk, just for funsies, I pulled it back out and like, here's my Lumia 1020, like one of the first granddaddy mega camera sensor experiments that we really got to play with here in the United States. I'm so happy the battery still charges on this thing. Yeah. I'm going to try and just take it out like one last hurrah for my little granddaddy 1020. And ever since that era, when you see how stark the difference can be between rear camera and front camera video quality or image quality, the only thing I rely on these front-facing cameras for are video calls, and I cannot care if I only have 1080p, because I'm not going to try and tackle a 4K video call from my phone, so that's fine. And I understand when people, but it's so much complicated, and you got to like...
If that's your need, I totally get it, but when you come to me and say, try, and it's like, well, the phone that you just said doesn't have 4K selfie video. You didn't know that?
But it's also, but it definitely kind of speaks to, I think, a kind of consumer education where, we didn't used to have problems looking at the little mirror on the back of our candy bar phones to take a photo of ourselves, and those photos came out fine for our quarter VGA, terrible 0.1 megapixel cameras. So I don't feel, or at least I should say, I work with my family and friends. Like for my siblings, I've gotten them like smartphone camera care packages for Christmas. Like here's a little clamp and a good little tripod and a good Gorilla Pod and some other things. Like here's a little Bluetooth remote. Like my sister and her husband, they just had their first child in the middle of the pandemic, and you're like, they have Pixel 4As. You can take amazing photos of your kid with a Pixel 4a, and they want to set up a nice family portrait. They have a large print from a Pixel 4a that they took with a little Bluetooth click remote that I got them. I wonder if they used the selfie camera to get that shot. No, they totally didn't. No. Spoiler alert. So that's what I mean is like, instead of saying, here's an educational opportunity. And again, see, every single time I bring up the Duo, well, why couldn't they put a better camera on the inside of the Duo and just get rid of the lump? And you're like, you don't think that if they could have gotten rid of the lump, that they would have gotten rid of the lump?
Thank you.
Have you seen Gen 1? That's what they're driving for. They want to give you the thinnest possible.
Correct.
So we show off selfie cameras because they're easy for someone who doesn't have that feel to take a photo. You can frame your photo. Great. You can see the screen. You are using the worst possible camera. So they're only good for the most disposable, decently lit kinds of photos. And if I'm out with my family, if we're on a vacation, if I'm on a mother flipping boat with TK Bay, I need to know that photo is going to look good. And the photo isn't going to look good unless I use the better
The
camera
better
to take
system.
that
Yeah,
photo.
no, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And so instead, we preface this and we use it as sort of a gotcha, or we try and stage that conversation. And it's sad because, again, I think a lot of consumers out there are wearing the wrong size clothes.
Oh, absolutely.
I think a lot of people would be looking at other photos and thinking, oh, like, that's actually a memory. I can't tell you the number of large format prints on canvas that we've done from smartphone photos. You blow up the photo, it gets a little grainy, you throw it on canvas as kind of the texture, and your smartphone photo now looks like a photograph. It looks like something artistic. You framed it, you've considered it. Maybe you did a little bit of an edit before you send it off to Costco to get it printed. And I think people would I think these things would matter more if they were presented as the conversation of the possible, as opposed to the I have the lowest expectation of you being the dumbest knuckle dragging human on the planet. So that's what an average consumer is, and they don't ever do anything but the most basic.
Nothing.
It's I call it just lazy, low hanging fruit picking approach to the because you actually Barry said it exactly. So you're telling me you're worried about the front facing camera on that 1-inch sensor phone, that the whole purpose of you getting that phone is the camera system on the back.
Yeah, I would love to have a ZV-1 to compare it to. Like literally, I've got a 1-inch sensor. You know,
I'm telling you,
right?
It's from the X80 Pro to the 12S Ultra. Man, Micro Four Thirds has some fierce competition for like anything outside of very specialty videography. I love my Lumix G9. I know Scoop.
Yeah.
I'm on it right now, and I know Scoop
has a
was
GH5.
bouncing in. He's still in the chat. I think he still has his GH5. These are great professional tools. The bin to pixel size on the 12S Ultra is the same as the GH6. It is pixel size parity with Micro Four Thirds, and that means you can chart a direct mathematical, computational, and optical through line right up to full frame cameras. We now know what the equivalency and what the matched performance and optical performance would look like against a full frame camera, just as we would do the same comparison on a Micro Four Thirds.
I love that. No. This is the exciting knuckles.
Oh, it's like I said, I haven't been. Well, this year has been exciting, right?
Yeah.
And I still I really need to tear more into this phone. Overall.
Well, I mean, what do you you've had it for a little bit. I mean, like let me just put you straight on the spot. What do you think you want to what do you want to tackle next?
Yeah, so what I want to tackle next, I really love like I'm a sucker for depth of field, right? But I want to compare the other cameras to I want to compare the other cameras, right, to the or the other sensors to the X80 Pro, but I really want to do a lot of HDR. I really think the X80 Pro is just, man, it's so good at HDR. So I really want to see what Xiaomi can do, like kind of take Xiaomi out of its comfort zone, you know, because that all to what you said, TK, this is what you can expect from this camera sensor. This is why you get the Xiaomi. This is why you get the X80 Pro, as opposed to this has a bigger sensor and it's better, you know. So
I mean, in my videos I do typically show what the video on the front facing camera, but I always explain that that's not the sensor you live in. You live in the front. Correct. You live in the main sensor on the back. That's the star. That's where all the bells and whistles, all of the performance is being directed at. And you need to. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I had to learn it from Juan because it took a lot of repetitive, drilling in of doing, hold the phone.
He's being so kind.
But like, I mean, when I first started watching Juan, it's like he gets a phone and that's his selfie. It's not like yesterday he started doing
We were in Vegas. We were walking in Vegas. This is back in the day when Juan and I used to walk CES in Vegas, and he turns on, puts on was it the G7? Basically he had an LG. We had it on a tripod. He flipped it around. We were talking basically with the main camera. We weren't even looking at what we looked at in there. He's focusing, but that's the content creation. That's the part of it.
Content, yes.
You use the tool, and this is why I appreciate what Sony does. Even though we got a better experience on the Xperia 1 Mark IV this year, it still is, you live and die by the sensors on the back, and they're doing so much about now, not just letting you live in one, you can live in the ultra wide, you can live with the
Yes,
telephoto,
yes,
you can
yes.
live with the main.
Yeah.
They're doing that they're doing what we want, is that a balanced experience. And oh, by the way, you have a better camera on the front if you want to have it, because everybody harped on that part for so long, but you still don't want to live there, you still want to be in the main sensors. So
I think the only selfie that I've sort of been leaning on, and it's just through pure laziness, I will do my microphone earbud tests on the selfie camera on the Pixel 6 Pro. So
Yeah.
the Pixel 6 camera app has that great little toggle so that
Yes,
you can
that
switch to the
toggle.
Bluetooth audio.
Yeah.
And then I just don't care if the video looks great, because the whole point
it's
is
the audio.
Audio.
this is what the mics sound like on these earbuds,
Correct.
and then I'm done. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's maybe the only thing I really use outside of video calls. I think that's the only thing I use, and it's very specific that the Pixel 6 shoots decent enough video from that selfie camera to make the audio test worth it that way.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think the 6A is stacked, like it's set to perform as good as like you said before. The Pixel 5 is a good jumping start pointing from there. It's an upgrade to the Pixel 5 in every
Oh, yeah.
aspect of processing,
yeah,
camera experience.
absolutely.
So we're gonna see.
You
all
know
of
what
the
I
new
think
upgrades.
is you know what I think is funny is going down to the 1080p screen at 60 hertz. It might actually be a better computational performer. You remember, like, some of those early times when we started switching on 120 hertz, we would actually see a performance deficit
deficit, yeah,
because the phone was running the UI more aggressively.
Yeah, yeah.
It could end up that the fastest Tensor one is on the cheapest.
it's on the
Yeah.
cheap and what. We'll have to see how it kind of. I mean, for me, my biggest thing I'm going to focus on is for A series supporters or A series fans. Does this make sense to go from a 4A, from a 3A, or a 5A?
Yeah,
These are the things,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
for me, it's the biggest part about it is if you're all about that life, you want to get the bang for the buck, the price point that just meets your budget's experience and still delivers more than what you thought we were getting into. Does the 6A stand up to that, and does it deliver what we were wanting essentially is a 6 Pro experience on slightly tailored down to the 449 price? And I think that's where the conversation happens, and that's what I would like to champion. So when we do have the opportunity to talk about that, or when we're able to join the conversation, is a better way of saying it.
Correct.
Because we don't have the phones. It's that we're not part of that.
But I mean, it's a when, not an if.
Yeah.
when
No,
we join this conversation.
Absolutely. But what I was mostly pointing to is on day one, where the narrative is being set, we're having to sit on the side, and I felt like the conversation.
I know that,
And that's a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, and I don't
It
think
is.
Google would have it would not hurt them. It wouldn't hurt them for
to
us to
have
be
it
part of the
all
conversation
at the same
Yeah,
time.
let
I
the
agree.
we
Especially
won't
when,
be taking views away from
yeah,
them.
and the thing about it, it's sort of like, all right, so you're on A7 IV, correct?
A7, yeah.
A7
Oh no, mine is A7S III. I still
A7S3. Oh, you still have that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you tested out the A7 IV, right?
yeah, exactly.
That's right. Okay, so A7 IV I think is a great YouTube camera, right?
Oh, absolutely, I loved it.
But
yeah,
it's a great YouTube camera, right? But
Mhm.
if you're gonna run and gun, you get rid of the rolling shutter with the A7S III. Like, you just want to pick it up. Hey, I'm just gonna start doing a vlog, right?
Mhm.
And you don't have crop 4K 60, right?
Yeah.
But the A7 IV still has merit, right? We don't just say, oh, we gotta, and that's kind of what, like, if you saw the launch, well, you did see the launch. What am I talking about? But the
Yeah.
launch of the Sony A7 IV was all of this positive stuff coming out instead of, hey, this is why we have to dismiss this phone, right? And that's then Team Pixel has to come in and clean that up. I just don't see where it makes sense to do that.
I'm going to put out a radical hot take. And it's
Okay.
something that I actually sent directly to one of the global heads of PR for LG back in the day, too. I feel the more expensive and the premium tier phones need a place in a community like Team Pixel.
Mhm.
I'd almost, again, in how I talk about phones and the type of people I think would be most interested in the Pixel 6A, I feel you could almost completely get rid of the grassroots reviewer, YouTuber, influencer style. The market of people who need to hear about the Pixel 6a the most aggressively need to be reached through traditional advertising. So all of the money that they spend on Pixel 6 and 6 Pro would probably do a bit better 6A all over NBA, 6A all over, Major League Baseball, 6A on, news channels, on, cable, finance conversations.
No, that's what I'm saying. They need to put the budget
I
behind it. Yeah.
no, but what I mean is like I would almost advocate for
More
don't
in
send.
the- Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Don't send. No, go ahead. Don't send. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, don't send a single review unit out and put every penny towards billboards and bus stop signs and magazines and television. I need to hear a radio commercial about a Pixel 6a. Those are all the consumers who most need to be reached about this phone, and then save the influencer, web, aggressive tech, that kind of conversation for the $600 to $900 phones. And I mean, again, I would be sad if I didn't get one for free as a review unit to play with. But I'd probably still join that conversation if I didn't get sent one. The people who need, I mean, like, again, like to your point, Barry, it's a marketing game. It's hearts and minds. It's all of that emotional quality. Here is the Google iPhone, and it costs like half the price of an iPhone.
Oh, yeah.
And if you aren't consistent and you aren't constantly hammering the consumer mind share, then you evaporate from the conversation and you disappear at the most important time, because this is the bread and butter phone. This is the phone that the vast majority of consumers who would be more interested in, this is the one that they actually need to hammer. So that's my thing. Like, I definitely appreciate it. I love being a part of Team Pixel. I think their support for our tech community has been incredible. I love engaging. I love the workshops and the fun things that they do for video streams. And if they stopped doing it tomorrow for the mid-ranger phones and focused on a much more grassroots consumer advertising effort, I would be so happy, because it would make my job easier, because then I wouldn't have to undo the damage of mega YouTubers. Now I could just jump into the conversation and say, hey guys, isn't this phone super exciting? This is what you're going to get your aunt. This is what you're going to get your uncle. This is what you're going to get your parents. They're going to love this phone. It's really inexpensive. Isn't that awesome? As opposed to, no, really, you can consider this phone. It's different than an SE. Oh, it's got some pros and cons. It's going to beat an A53. Anyone who recommended that is probably really terrible at recommending tech for average consumers, and you should stop listening to any tech advice that they have outside of maybe really fancy cinema cameras. But trust me, I know I don't have as many subscribers, but I know what I'm talking about too. You're not really listening to me. Great.
Yeah. Well said.
It's always
it was a little play acting there at the end. It got dramatic.
And the Oscar goes. No, just kidding.
Not to me.
No, we come from the school of bad acting. You should have seen last week's weather report that I did on the office.
Right.
I replayed that a couple of times, and apparently my wife was listening. Was watching that part. I went down. She's like, "What were you doing?" I said, I was on top of a boat. I'm trying to make things like. I looked like a weather reporter. I was in the field.
I was like, "Oh, my dear wife, I was winning on the internet." Is what I was doing. But we should probably start wrapping this up. I mean, I think we've kind of been dovetailing a little bit and around this stuff. But Barry, what kind of stuff are you going to be cranking out next for your channel? Because so far, the commentary has been great. I loved your first video on the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. I feel like there's going to be a lot of these kinds of follow-ups, comparisons, and conversations to come. But what should we be looking for coming up?
Well, so I do want to get to performance, but I think most people are expecting camera, so I'm going to go camera next, right? So deep dive into the cameras, then I'll go performance, and then a lot of comparisons.
That'll be nice.
And it'll be more like, this is why you would use this. This is why you would use this. Not, I'm picking the winner.
So I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, first comparison will be Vivo.
Oh, it's got to be Vivo.
Okay, good.
It's
Me
gotta
too.
be Vivo. It's gotta be Vivo. And I know you love the Vivo as well, TK. The Vivo.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. I was
I'm
stunned. Like
sold on
I
the
can use it as my B camera. And then I heard you talking about it one day. I was like, oh my goodness,
yeah,
it's incredible.
it's that good. It was competing for my hand time at CES with the with the A7 IV. That was the
Yeah,
crazy. It was like,
yeah.
do I set up the tripod? They were like, nope, hold on, let me.
No.
Oh, dude, this looks nice.
Boop.
Set and I covered so much out of it that I hated giving back the phone.
Oh, I
Like
remember.
I
I
normally have
remember that.
no
I remember
problems.
that. I
Yeah,
remember
that
that.
was the phone. I literally would have been like, okay, friendship is over, Juan. I'll see
Yeah.
you. I'm gonna yeah no it was we worked it and we got it and we obviously we both of us, you and I, Barry, got a chance to play with the IQ as well, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of fun tech coming out. Vivo's been, it's just, again, it's access to the tech, right? I've worked a lot more with OPPO, with OnePlus, and Realme,
Correct.
and that the other branch of Vivo of BBK,
BBK. Yeah.
yeah, has been more Juan's side. So I'm very happy that he was able to
Mm-hmm.
do that collaboration with them too. Those
Mm-hmm.
few project videos that he did with them at the launch, that was nice. So yeah, no, I'm happy now. Like I said, I'm happy that it's here, it's staying here. There's no
It's in a
more.
good
And
home.
yeah, Juan's
Yeah.
not chasing me down with with a stick. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
give me back my phone.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
No, yeah, we're good. But yeah. So well, actually, let's tailor it off to you, Juan. What are you in the working on, or what should people expect from you in the near
I
timeline?
genuinely don't know. I had some sponsored stuff that now has gotten held up, so I'm gonna scramble to put something together for
Typical stuff.
tomorrow.
I was gonna
What
say.
what I think I'm gonna fill with tomorrow is gonna be a very simple, but sort of more of an editorial video talking about some of my experiences with Pixel 6 Pro.
Okay.
Like 6A is here. This is what I've experienced as we've kind of checked out Tensor, as Android 12 has evolved, because I think Android 12 was sticky for everybody. I don't think anyone started Android 12 off in good shape. So I think I'm going to try and put together something like that. I finally, through the bulk of all the monitors, like today I just published the video on the portable OLED
Yes.
from Innocen,
Innocen.
which is a gorgeous portable display. I mean, it's like, yeah, again, I mean, like, I'm not blowing anyone's mind here.
Yeah.
OLEDs are inky and contrasty and vibrant and colorful.
Yeah,
And
to
like,
have that portable, yeah, no,
and
a portable phone.
was mostly driving it off of like my Honor and streaming video on it, and it just
Wow.
looks so good. It's stupid that like it's an all enclosed metallic frame that looks that good. You just throw it in a backpack, and now you have a gorgeous screen that you can hook up to any laptop, phone, or tablet. So yeah, I'm going to be focusing on that. Then on the Patreon, the next piece that I'm going to be pushing forward, some ranking and tiering on cameras. Like I kind of break down like different
that'd be good.
different categories, what I think, how we should be looking at camera comparisons in much the same way that I like to talk about phones very specifically. Like, this is a productivity phone, this is a gaming phone. I feel like we can start doing that now with cameras. Like, this is a video action.
Your tier ranking would be like, the ultimate wide angle is the Pixel 6 Pro. It's ultimate wide. It's so wide,
It
right?
does not get chef's kiss, Salt
Yeah.
Bay. Man, I mean, just like, I just look at that no autofocus, small sensor, ultra wide field of view and just go, wow.
Yep.
Wow. So that's going to be kind of the shake up there, and obviously a lot of conversation. I'm gonna wait to get my Xiaomi stuff out until I feel like I've gotten a few things buttoned down.
Yeah.
But like, I also just published an article on the Axon.
Oh,
So
the
some
Axon.
of the
Yeah.
challenges I've had finishing up a camera video on the Axon, some unexpected roadblocks. Again, my camera reviews are really long and they take a long time to finish, and they can get derailed very easily. And I had something that kind of messed me up on the Axon 40 Ultra. I think they're great cameras still, but I'm not sure how to describe the effects of what I'm seeing based on some of the numbers. So again, it's some interesting things that are going to be coming out, and then just kind of tying all this together. I'm definitely, I mean, I'm with Barry. I feel number one, it's 12S Ultra versus Vivo X80 Pro for my photography heart this year.
Yeah,
It's a really good
rightfully
showdown.
so. No, absolutely, rightfully so. I'm going to be slumming it a little bit because I don't have that much that in. I'm actually coming off the Reno. I'm going to be going into the Realme. It's a China phone as well. It's more about Realme's top tier and kind of holding me hopefully till we get the Pixel. And then I have a few other video. I finally got some more accessories for. I need to finish the laptop Go 2 video, guys. I've been using it so much, but I haven't kind of put a video together for it, like an actual review of it. It's just that small little laptop that could do so much, and I finally got my Ergo mouse today. Nice. I don't know. Juan's been rocking it since when we got it at the beginning. So a little bit of things like that, kind of getting back on my own, because with the trip I filmed so much in advance that technically for 10 days or so almost I haven't been shooting videos, so you kind of have to get back. You gotta build it up, turn on camera, set up, like right before we were doing things, I put my laptop back in there, I rehooked up everything to get the live stream to run, because it runs off my laptop. I don't actually, my desktop is behind me. So so that's what my main focus tomorrow, at some accessory stuff for PlayStation 5 and stuff like that, and then just kind of cleaning up some backlogs. Mostly focusing on that and getting back in the game. So Pixel hopefully very soon, and then we'll see with OnePlus. Hopefully we're able to get my hands on one of them, so we can that's in a 2 more weeks or so. August 3rd is around the corner. So we'll see. Keeping it interesting.
It's too fast.
It's
too fast.
July's done, and then of course school starts, and I have to start anyways. I do want to say first and foremost, Barry, thank you for jumping on with us.
This is great, man.
We were totally. It was like no pressure whenever, and it was like we're happy that you were able to join us. Everybody in the chat as well, hanging out with us this late. Obviously, Tech Loving Mama, Doodle Zenos. Hey, haven't seen Infopinion. Haven't seen him for some time. Michael Peppertech, Scoop was with us for a while. Jeff, everybody kicking it with us, just having fun and joining the conversation. Tech is amazing. Tech is great, but you have to be able to enjoy it. Really, if you're not enjoying it, you're doing it wrong. Sorry, that's just lazy writing. If you're not getting it, you need to get an. No, I'm not. I can't. The words can't come out as too.
We know what you're trying to say.
No. So, make sure to check out Juan on Monday. Obviously, we have the Saturday morning, the Android Bay, hopefully back on its normal time in the studio. We'll have some conversations going on there. And of course, I'll update the show notes as well for Barry's contacts. It was a surprise.
Make sure those are all linked.
Make sure to find them.
You'll be able to find those channels.
And of course, links to Juan's Patreon and all of his socials as well are in the description below. There'll be an audio podcast hopefully dropping in about a day. We'll have that access for you guys. And of course, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of the best of our week. Be safe, stay safe. We'll see you guys next
time. Take care, all. And